And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The same people.
The white man is enacting a story all over the world. We left our homes and flooded the world. We smothered culture. We smothered knowledge. We erased history and rewrote it our way. Myself, my grandfather is 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Claiming to be Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish is just a conspiracy. White men claiming to be of tribes of Israel when I'm Germanic. You know, I have no ties to Israel, no ties to Judaism. You know, except loosely written history that's been whitewashed over for centuries. And you know,
from the Renaissance.
Oh yeah, right. You wipe everything clean. It's funny how exactly the Renaissance. It's this rebirth, but it's white rebirth. I think at the same exact time the Renaissance is happening, Columbus is sailing to America and committing genocide.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
There's only one true ethnic Jew, the Mizrahi Jew, because they are Africans, and if you read the original Bible written in Phoenician Hebrew, they're not. Jewish people are not Europeans. The modern Jews in Israel are Russians or Khazars to be precise, from Russia. I learned it from my grandfather that he was because he was an Ashkenazi Jew.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
Because he's been given dominion over all the works of God. Because he's a speaking spirit. That's why God said, if you would say to that mountain, say something, boy, speak, spirit. And that was Adam, like a mannequin. And when God breathed, he went, hey, he could have created the whole race, but he didn't. He made two women, a man and a woman, made two people and said, y'all create. Speaking, don't tell me a woman can't preach. See, you know what's wrong with men? They look at a woman as a sexual object to be conquered. Let me help you out, ladies. No, you are a speaking spirit made in the image of God. You can talk like a man, talk like God. Speak, spirit. Listen, man, you got no sense about God. You know where all his artwork came from? God. God was a sculptor. He sculptured Adam out of the dirt. Just like Michelangelo sculptured the La Pieta out of marble. But what happens is it's a statue. But when God finished, he breathed life. All of a sudden, Adam opens his eyes. He's a speaking spirit. But God didn't quit forming stuff out the dust. He created all kind of animals, but he didn't know what they was. What is that? I have no idea what that is. Artists do that all the time. What am I trying? What's coming out of me? I can tell y'all don't believe me. Look at y'all going. You want me to prove it? How many of y'all want me to prove it to you? God made animals and didn't have that foggiest idea what they were. You want me to prove it to you? Tell me the book of Genesis chapter 2. I'll show you something. You think I'm joking? I'll show you something right now. Oh, Lord, let me finish this tonight. If you get ready, if you finish before I do, you can go home. Let me finish this real quick. Genesis chapter 2. God made a horse and didn't have the foggiest idea what a horse was. Made a horse out the dirt, standing there like a mannequin. Look at me, like this. Had no idea what it was. He just sculptured it. You don't believe me? I'll reprove it to you. Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
Milamed, it teaches us that Adam not only named the animals, but he dated all the animals. But he was not able to be at peace with any of them until finally Chava was created.
Hashem didn't have a problem with that?
I mean, dated means, I'm trying to use a nice word.
What does dated means? What do you mean by dated?
Dated means he took her out to Pisgah.
Dated.
They went out to the Chosan. They had a little, Monte.
Relationship? Not relationship, just let's keep it rated PG.
We're going to keep it rated. We're going to keep it rated PG for the G for grandmas for this discussion. But that's what he did. It says he went out with the animals. He went out.
Hashem told him to, or he did it on his own?
It seems like that was part of the assignment of Hashem gave him the task of naming the animals, and it seems that naming the animals was not all that he was supposed to do. He was supposed to name the animals, and in the process of naming, he was supposed to discover if any of these animals could be his wife. So he was dating.
First time I heard.
Rashi, I'm calling you Rashi. I'm not making it up. It's Rashi.
So maybe he was looking for company, like someone to hang out with.
What's the exact hang out with dog?
Right.
That's what he was trying to do, but wanted a closer hanging out, but it wasn't.
Okay, so I hear what you said. Yeah, I mean this.
What's the exact wording?
Oh, the exact wording. Okay, one the exact.
He was commanded to do that. That's when they saw that he was lonely and they give him a mate.
So they're saying good. Let me read the exact words here. It says Zosapam. This time, Adam says this time. Finally, when he was created, he says Zosapam. Finally, Milamed. It teaches us Shebo Adam Akol Behema V'Chaya. He came upon all the animals below this Karadaito Behem, and his mind was not at peace.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black.
This is how the Zohar interprets the opening words of Genesis. The Hebrew is Bereshit bara Elohim, which we usually translate, in the beginning, God created. But the Zohar insists on reading the words in the precise order in which they appear in Hebrew. Bereshit, in the beginning, bara, it created, Elohim, God. In the beginning, it created God. The Zohar takes that to mean, in the beginning, infinity created God. Now, what could that possibly mean? God is now the object of the verse, not the subject, which sounds impossible or heretical, but the Zohar, I think, is saying that infinity is the true reality of God. Anything else that we call God is puny compared to that. That's our own imagination or our own our own estimate of what God could be.
We would not know how to live on the Sabbath if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the laws of the dietary laws of kashrut are if it were not for the oral law. We would not know what the tefillin, what the boxes on our arms and heads that we wear every morning in our prayer service, what they're supposed to be. And in fact, all of Judaism would be completely mysterious, would be voodoo, if it were not for the oral law.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. I hope all is well with you guys. I know I'm running a little late, so we're going to get right into it. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. Apologies for the delay. If my sound sounds okay, type 1. If I need to adjust my sounds, type 2. I'll ask again if my sound sounds okay. If the audio sounds okay, type 1. If it needs to be adjusted, type 2. Okay. All right. Well, we got a lot to cover tonight. Some of the items we're going to highlight is going to be a refresher to some of you guys. But overall, you know how it goes. As the Most High Yahweh, as Yahweh instructed Moses with Joshua, he instructed him to rehearse into the ears of Joshua, right? So that means that everything that we are dealing with, everything that we're teaching, we have to make it a point to continuously refresh the information, refresh the teaching, rehearse it in your ear. So that way, whatever you, do in practice, when you get tested, it'll come out of you naturally. So we're going to continue to, continue on echoing the same message, maybe presented it in a number of different ways, but overall it's the same message. And that is, we have to draw a line. We have to honor the things of the Most High. It's all about his word, his will, and his way. And so how do we align ourselves with his word, his will, and his way? By honoring the law, statutes, and commandments, by studying his holy word, Dabar HaQuadash, and not getting caught up with the itching ear stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it, because I know we're already starting late because I had to push things back 15 minutes. And so I want to say special shout outs to my cousin. Family, show some love to my cousin, Shalonda Carr, who is the wife of my cousin, the late Sean Carr. Show us some love. Everyone, show my cousin some love. Appreciate you, cuz. And I'll definitely be giving you a call within, if not tomorrow, definitely by Shabbat for sure. But I'm going to try to give you a call tomorrow. Hope all is well with you. Hope the family is doing well, and really love and appreciate you, cuz. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Show my cousin some love, family. All right. But we're going to go ahead and get into it. We got a lot to unpack, a lot to cover. And as you can see, the topic for tonight is Merry Dismissal, right? A little play on words, but you'll get it when we get into the lesson. Merry Dismissal. Apostle Paul warned against Christmas. Let me say that again. Merry Dismissal. Apostle Paul warned against Christmas. The Messiah warned against Christmas. The scripture talks about the celebration of Christmas, right? So tonight, we're not going to get too deep into Christmas. We're going to lead up to it. We'll do a part 2 of this lesson. We'll do it more than likely. We'll do a Shabbat night, or not tomorrow night. We'll do it Saturday night. All right, the first day of the week night. So, and we'll get more into the actual holiday, the festivities itself. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me stretch the screen out. Did a lot to put this presentation together. You guys know how I like doing things here. I like to, of course, teach, but I also like to make sure that the presentation is of excellence, because I believe the presentation makes a world of a difference of allowing you guys to receive the information and retain what's being shared as well. So, the presentation is everything. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So Mary dismissal, right? Mary dismissal. So what do I mean by this? What do I mean by this? Mary dismissal. Mary dismissal. I'm going to ask that question to you guys. What do you guys think when I say Mary dismissal? What do you think what do you think I'm referring to when I say Mary dismissal? Feel free to type your answers inside the comment section, and I'll explain it when we get to a certain point. But what do you guys think when I say Mary dismissal? If you know the answer, or if you think you know the answer, you just want to give it a try, type your answer inside the comment section. Let me see. B. Schmer says, I'm not sure. Okay, we're going to answer the question, but I'm just curious if you guys have a hint, if you guys kind of know where I'm going to go at with this, with me saying Mary dismissal. All right, let's see here. Ari Lynn, dismissed that celebration out of your life. Okay, great try, but not quite. But we're gonna get there. But appreciate you, Diamond Love, and we're gonna give clarity. Diamond Love, being happy while dismissing Yah's commandments. Okay, we're gonna get to it. Appreciate the comments. Who else? Servant of the Most High, the dismissal of Yahweh, and serving other gods. All right, now she's close. Or he's close, rather. I'm sorry. You're close. You are close. Some of the other answers: no Christmas. Let's see here: not caring or giving no regards to Christmas. Dismiss Christmas. Let's see here: Christmas. Etymology means dismissal. Getting close. You guys are getting warm. Dismiss the hidden evil agendas behind Christmas. Let's see here: you guys are warm. Down with the Baphomet God. You guys are warm, but I'm gonna get there. Let's see here. Greetings, Mr. Original. Really appreciate you. Let's see here. Okay, we're gonna go there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Appreciate you guys responding. Cancel Christmas. Let's see here. Bring my phone over here. Make sure no one trying to call me. Dismiss Christmas. Let's see here. Rodley, dismiss Christmas. Let's see what. Happy for the dismissal of Christ. Now, guess what? This is the answer right here. Lasonia Kumar, happy for the dismissal of Christ. That is the answer right there, right? Happy for the dismissal of Christ. That's what Mary dismissal means, right? That's what Mary dismissal means. That's what Christmas actually means. The word Christmas itself means. Right. So that's what the word actually means. Celebrating the dismissal of Christ. Now, let me give you proof. Let's get into the lesson. We got a lot to unpack here, but let me show you here. Right. Again, lesson for tonight, Mary dismissal. Right. Apostle Paul warned against Christmas. Paul gave a stern warning about Santa Claus. Let me say that again. Paul gave a stern warning about Santa Claus. Excuse the typo. I was trying to clean up the presentation as much as I can, but I couldn't catch everything. Paul gave a stern warning about Christmas, the celebration of Christmas. So Paul gave a stern warning about the dismissal of Christ, because we're living in a day and time when we really look at what we are facing today and all the opposition. It's not just of our identity, it's also to sabotage our hope, when you understand hope and the importance of the Messiah, because we're going to touch on what Messiah is, but the importance of the Messiah, the importance of lifeline, when you understand the lifeline, right? The lifeline is what is referred to as hope. The Hebrew word for hope in the Israeli language is tikvah. In the ancient Hebrew is taqwa. But when you understand this, right, understand what it means. It literally means a cord, right? A rope. So when you think about hope, lifeline, and what's important, hope is on the other end of your lifeline, right? Remember that show, The Weakest Link? I'm not sure if it's still playing. I'm not sure if it's still it's still on television or whatever. But remember that game show, Weakest Link? Like the contestant had lifelines. One of the lifelines were to reach out to someone, call someone to see if they have the answer or can provide the answer for whatever question that they're stumped. The other is to randomly remove one or two of the questions that was being asked. So the weakest link. So you have lifelines, and what's so imperative, especially when you have dealing with a person, it's imperative that you have someone that's dependable on the other end of your lifeline, right? So when you start understanding that, when we start dealing with hope, rope, cord, intertwined strands, braided together, the key is what's on the other end of your lifeline. We all have hope. Every last one of us have hope. But the key is what's on the other end of your lifeline. That's the key. Who or what do you have hope in? Who or what have you placed or put your trust in? And so for us, the other the extension of our lifeline is supposed to be on the other side of our lifeline. It's supposed to be Christ, the Messiah, Hamashiach, right? Who is the door? He said, I am the way, right? The truth and the light. No man come to the Father but by him. So coming to the Father, what's on the other end of our lifeline is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the lifeline is to keep you from straying away and to keep you secure. And if you are in trouble, right, to get you out of trouble. All right. So Paul gave a stern warning about the dismissal of Christ. He gave a strong warning. So how do the etymological dictionary define Christmas? And this is what's important. How do the etymological dictionary define Christmas? And I did a documentary years ago, and I broke this down. Probably about 6 years ago is when I created it, maybe a little longer. And I really broke some of this down, but I'm going to give a refresher for some of those that haven't, seen that presentation in a long time. I may upload it on We Woke Now again for your viewing. But how do the etymological dictionary define Christmas? So let's go to the etymology dictionary, see what it says. As you see here, it says Christmas, right? A church festival observed annually in memory of the birth of Christ. Now, I want you guys to understand, it wasn't until the 4th century where the church per se began to come up with an annual observation, annual celebration of the Messiah's born day. And guess what? It's not December 25th. And we're going to get into that, but not tonight. We'll get into how they chose December 25th. Right? There's a lot of deception that's out here, especially I saw a Catholic priest trying to give clarity and trying to say that the Saturnalia and the equinox, all of that doesn't play a part in the selection of Christmas, the date where it is, the time of the year. It's amazing how people do anything and everything to try to defend their philosophies. So again, church festival, this is Christmas. Church festival observed annually in memory of the birth of Christ. Late Old English, Christie's Masse or Mas, right? Masse, right? So from Christ, and it says here, and retaining the original vowel sound, right? So we're dealing with Christ, right? Or Christie's, right? But Christ, that's what we're going to deal with right here. Christ plus Mass. All right. That's what Christmas is. Christmas, the word Christmas is two words, Christ plus Mass. It is a noun, right? But anyway, it tells us to go to the noun definition number 2 to understand what Mass means and when we deal with this word. So Christmas means Christ plus Mass. So let's go to see what these words mean. Let's put it together. Let's start with, again, Christ. Christmas is the combination of two words, Christ plus Mass. And when we go to the etymological dictionary definition of Mass, you guys already know this about Christ, rather. You know what Christ or Messiah means. It means the anointed, right? The anointed, to rub, anoint. So we know when we deal with that word Messiah, we know that there were a number of anointed individuals in the scriptures. We know the kings were anointed, and you'll see this word Mashiach, Mashiach, trying to clear my throat. You'll see that, you'll see that in the holy text, the ancient text in the Greek. I'm not Greek, but the Hebrew. You'll see it's referred to the priests. You'll see it's referred to the kings. You'll also see that there is a special prophecy for the Messiah, who is anointed to be the Redeemer. It's only one Redeemer through the Father, and that's Christ, right? And we'll touch on that again, because there's a lot of trolling non-Messianic people that are going from platform to platform, pushing all kinds of nonsense. But again, Christ, right? It's the Greek Christos, but from the ancient Hebrews, Mashiach, and it means the anointed. All right. It means to rub. So we already defined Christ. We already defined Messiah. We see Christ in the Messiah, Hamashiach, in Matthew chapter 24. He warned about other people that's going to say that they are anointed to do the things that he's called to do, and will try to take on his reputation. He said there'll be Christ, plural. But he's in the Hebrew, he's saying there'll be other people that is going to proclaim that they are the Messiah. They are the anointed to carry out the task that Hamashiach, the Son of the Most High, has been ordained to do, anointed to do. So when we go to the etymological dictionary definition of Mass, let's see what it says here. It says here, because it told us when we looked at the definition of Christmas, it told us to go to Mass, right? Number 2, the definition number 2, the noun definition number 2. And notice what it says here. From Vulgar Latin, messa, right? Eucharistic service, Mass, Eucharistic service, literally dismissal. We see dismissal, Latin missa, dismissal. It says from female past participle of mater, which means to let go, send, right? And it goes on to say to go. It is the dismissal, right? And then when you understand dismissal, let me see if I could put it in here real quick, because I meant to put that word in here. All right, let me see if I can put dismissal in here so you guys can see where we're going at with this. Because when you understand dismissal and how it ties in with Mass, because that's a key word, let me put it in here, because I can tell you what it is in terms of scatter. When you think of dismissal, it also refers to scattering. But let me go ahead and put the definition here real quick. Bear with me 1 second. And if the graphics look old, it's because this, I've been teaching this for quite some time. Let's see here. Dismissal. All right, don't look too old. I can tell how old it is. It is my updated graphic. So let me show you what dismissal means, right? So, and how it's synonymous to the word Mass. All right, let me put this here so that way you guys can see it. All right. All right. So let's see what dismissal means. All right. Let's go to the etymology dictionary of this word dismissal. Let's see what it says. All right. Let's bring up dismissal. So we see that again, mass, and it says dealing with the Catholics, right? Dealing with the church, Eucharistic service, dismissal, to let go, send, go. It is the dismissal. All right. So the etymology dictionary definition of dismissal, let's see what it says. All right. Notice what it says. Removal from office, service, or employment, right? Send away, send different ways, break up, discharge, renounce, abandon. Let me put a little animation here so I can look at the back of here. All right, let me see here. All right. All right, there we go. All right, so you can see in the backdrop here, again, it says send, let go, meaning send away, order, or give permission to depart, right? So again, dismissal, remove from office, service, or employment, send away, send different ways, break up, in other words, scatter. When it says send different ways, scatter, break up, discharge, renounce, abandon. So again, mass. So when we see Christmas, we see Messiah. Then when we get to the part about the mass, right? It means dismissal, and dismissal in a nutshell, removing from office, service, or employment, send away, send different ways. In other words, scatter, break up, discharge, renounce, abandon. So when we look at this word Mary, right, we're going to tie it all together. It means pleasing. And you can see how this backdrop is, because a lot of the definitions are being modified in this etymology dictionary online. So you can see that I've been dealing with this tool for quite some time, and I introduced so many people to this tool. I should get resources off of this, right? I should get some type of what they call it. Can't think of a name now. Commission off of this, because of how many people I was able to instruct and encourage to start using this tool. But nevertheless, again, when we deal with the word Mary, and I want to bring it up in the back so that way you can see it here, joyful. But notice what it says here. Old English, marriage, pleasing, right? So the key I just want to deal with is pleasing, agreeable, pleasant, sweet, pleasantry, melodiously, short lasting. And also the key in the back here is joyful. So when we put this thing all together, when we deal with Christmas, so when you say Merry Christmas, or those that are saying Merry Christmas, what they are actually saying that they are in agreement, or if you're saying it, you are saying you are in agreement, you are pleased, you are joyful at the fact that the Messiah was dismissed. Joyful at the dismissal, at the scattering, at the shifting, the retirement. As we go back here, remember, we deal with dismiss, remove from office. So you are saying you're happy, you're in joy that the Messiah was removed from office, that he was removed, from being in the position that he's in, that he was sent away, that he was sent in different ways, that he was scattered, right? Abandoned. Right. So that's what it means. That's what it means. We say Merry Christmas. Going back here, when you say Merry Christmas, you are actually saying you are in agreement, pleased, and joyful at the dismissal of the Messiah. So that's what it means. That's what Christmas actually means. That's what Christmas actually means, family. When a person again say Merry Christmas, you are actually saying you are in agreement, you are pleased and joyful at the dismissal of the Messiah. So no matter what many would try to spin things to try to say, hey, you know what, that's not what it means. We went and I gave you sources. All you have to do is just go to the etymology dictionary. And I encourage you guys to. I don't have my book in here with me because I have stacks of books in my other family room, right? I will show you one of my etymology dictionaries. I'm trying to look around, see if I have it here. Yeah, it's in my other office, so I don't have it in here. So in a nutshell, it's good to always have a physical copy of the etymology dictionaries, especially an older copy, because they're constantly making changes to the online, and I've seen a number of discrepancies with it. So again, when somebody say Merry Christmas to you, you be careful how you respond to them. Say I make it clear I don't celebrate. I don't celebrate. I don't celebrate. So again, when you say Merry Christmas, you are actually saying you are in agreement, pleased, and joyful at the dismissal of the Messiah. All right. So let's continue. Let's continue here. Let's go on. Let's move on. Let's see what happened here. All right. So let's go to a key prophecy of Apostle Paul. We got a lot to unpack. We're going to deal with some of Apostle Paul's prophecies. We're going to deal with some of it tonight, and we're going to deal with some Saturday night as we go deeper into this so-called holiday celebration. All right. So let's go to 2 Thessalonians. You guys know I use this, but I'm going to take it a step further. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. All right, grab your Bibles, walk with me with this, family, because I want you guys to really get this down, because you're going to have to witness this to your loved ones. You're going to have to witness this, right? You are going to have to witness this one day, and you have to be equipped. You have to be ready to give an answer when someone asks. That's the actual proper understanding of, for example, the Greek term apologia. Is not going out here to start trouble, but being prepared. If someone asks you a question, you're able to give an answer, not just give any answer, but the correct answer. So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. We got a lot to cover on this, and we're going to cover Colossians, but we really want to start with this. There's a lot to unpack here. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there coming a falling away first. And understand, family, when we deal with apostasy, when we deal with the falling away, right? You cannot fall away from something if you don't know what the truth of is, right? See, all of us are lost. All of us are lost. We're the lost people of the Most High. But the key is the Most High is going to set us up to where so we have a decision to make, right? Do we want to be found, or do we want to fall away? Right? Do we want to be found, or do we want to go into the state of falling away? So when you're lost and the Most High bring this truth to you, and you embrace this truth, like some of the lies that we were taught in church, right? That we don't have to honor the law, statutes, and commandments, that the law is done away with. If you can just let that go, then that means that you are going from the state of being lost to the state of being found, because when you're found, you have the truth revealed to you and you embrace the truth. But those who have this truth presented to them and they reject it, they go from being lost to being fallen away. All right. So I hope that helps you guys with this. That's what means when you think about falling away, that are those who decided that they were told the truth and they rejected the truth. So they go from being lost to being fallen away. So I'm found. You guys are found. Those that are following this law, statutes, and commandments, those that say, hey, you know what? I'm not letting nothing take me away from the Messiah. I'm not letting anything take me away from it. I'm going to honor the things of the Most High, do the things that pleases him. Guess what? You're found. But there's many of our brothers and sisters that have fallen away and turned over to a reprobate mind. All right. So let no man deceive you by any means. Do whatever you need to do. Some people you just have to just ignore, dismiss, right? Get them out of your life, because their whole purpose is to disrupt what you got going, what you have going on. You have people that just want to be disruptive, try to cause you to focus on things that are not important, things that are not salvation related issues, things that get you stressed out, that could cause you to forfeit all the things that the Most High have set aside for you. So let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall come, except there come a falling away first. Notice what it says, a falling away first. And we see the great falling away right now. We see the great awakening, but in the midst of this great awakening, there's so many people that are falling away because they are rejecting the truth. And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Now I'm going to ask you guys the question, right? Who is the son of perdition? Who is the son of perdition? Who do you think is the son of perdition? Just go ahead and type your answers in. I'm going to answer the question, but who do you think is the son of perdition? Who do you think is the son of perdition? Just type the name that you think, right? And I'll go through some of the answers here. All right, the Antichrist. Okay. We'll work with that, because I know many are going to say that the Antichrist is the Antichrist, and we'll do a poll on that, because I see some others that are saying the same thing. Okay, Antichrist. Sister Alexandria says she's not sure, don't know. V Cannon, Antichrist. Cam 2 player, Judas, right? You know Judah, right? Judas' name is actually Judah, Yahweh, right? And Israel did betray the Most High. Judah did betray Christ, but we're going to give clarity on that. Amiyah, Yakita, she says Antichrist. Okay, so it looks like we have a few people saying the Antichrist, the evil one. LJ says don't know, right? And it's all right. It's because we're going to address it. We're going to give the answer anyway. We're going to address it anyway. For awakening, Satan. Let's see here. The lawlessness one. All right. Let's see who else. Henry, or I think they're trying to say the Antichrist. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's what I think. So I think that's what Ty Good is saying. Dre Lee, a spell. I'm not sure of that. All right. But I think that's an interaction within the chat. Judas, Esau. Let's see who else. And we're going to answer this question. The Pope. All right. Unorthodox daughter of Zion. Great. That's a great answer. But we're going to tie it all together. We're going to tie it all together. You're warm. Right. The son of perdition. Someone says Satan. Okay. The Antichrist. The Antichrist. I got victory. Antonio on the go. The spirit of the Antichrist. You guys are giving some great answers. And we're going to really tie it all together. Trayvon Chapman. Shalom to you as well. Let's see here. Ty Good. Antichrist. Sister Yvette, Antichrist, Don P. Ben Yahuda, the man of sin and his offspring. You're getting close. You guys are warm, but we're gonna give some clarity here. Satan, the Pope, my buddy Jay Highstyle. Show some love to my buddy Jay Highstyle family. It's my buddy right here. All right. Our old sin nature. Now you guys are giving some great answers. All right, some great answers. Lucifer. Satan, TM, cross post, Vatican. Okay, let's answer this question. This is the question that we need to answer, right? I think it's a very good question, right? Who is the son of perdition? Okay, but it goes on to say in verse 4, and this is going to give you an idea of the son of perdition. It says right here, the son of perdition, right? The man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And this is the characteristics. This is the reputation of the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called Allahayim, or that is worshipped, so that he as Allahayim sitteth in the temple of Allahayim, showing himself that he is Alahayim. So many nuggets there. It's so many nuggets here. So is Apostle Paul, actually the question is, who is Apostle Paul referring to as the son of perdition? We're going to answer this question. Who is the son of perdition who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God? We got to answer this question here, right? Let's start with the Freemasons. Their understanding of God, right? They break down the word God into 3 letters, G-O-D. All right. Now we're going to go deep here. We are getting ready to go deep here. The Freemasonry, right? The Freemasons, God, G-O-D. Notice what it says here. This is coming from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, right? And see, I used to be a Freemason, right? I used to, be part of that fraternity. I thank the Most High for saving me, bringing me out of that delusion. So notice what it says here. And this is coming directly out of their page, right? Let me go back here. You see here, this is a screen print out of their page. So when you see backdrops like this is me actually taking a screen print out of their page. So you see here, G-O-D, the initials of. So I want to make sure you understand that this is coming directly from the source, these books right here. All right. G-O-D, the initials of Gomer, Oz, Dabar. So when you see G-O-D from Freemason's perspective, of Freemasonry's perspective, G-O-D is what God stands for, right? In Freemasonry. It is a singular coincidence and worthy of thought that the letter composing the English name of deity should be the initials of the Hebrew word for wisdom, strength, beauty, the 3 great pillars or metaphorical supports of Masonry. They seem to represent almost the only reason that can reconcile a Mason to the use of the initial G. Now, this is dealing with that letter G that you see in between that square and the compass, right? Notice what it says, right? So this is telling us that letter G stands for Gomer. It says in its conspicuous suspension in the east of the lodge in place of the delta. The incident seemed to be more than an accident. This is saying this is no coincidence. It's not accidental to see that letter G being referred to, because again, the letter G stands for Gomer, not geometry. Many think that when they see that letter G, especially those that are in the lower degrees, they think that that letter G stands for geometry, because you're taught that geometry, mathematics, is the universal language, right? But no, we're going beyond that. Right? That letter G stands for Gomer. Let me say that again. That letter G stands for Gomer. Stands for Gomer. So the incident seems to be more than an accident. They're saying it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It is calculated for you to see the letter G, that letter G standing for Gomer. Right? So here it is. Right? The first letter, we started from rear to the front, like how it is in the actual book. Dabar, wisdom, the letter D. Oz, right? Now in the ancient Hebrew, right, which many refer to it as Paleo, the ayan looks like it's a circle. It looks like a O. That's why you see here O, right? That's a whole nother different topic here when we deal with languages. So we're going to deal with this. I am working on some teachings to update the Patreon account. I got some more lessons I'm going to go into, and I'm going to start back over with lesson 1, and we're going to work our way all the way up to lesson 10 of the ancient Hebrew. And then I'm going to do some additional lessons that's going to hone in on keywords. All right. So we see here, Dabar means wisdom. We see Oz, right? I'm just pronouncing this from the Israeli language, strength. Then we see Gomer, Gamar, right? Which means, again, beauty. So wisdom, strength, beauty, right? God And notice what's interesting, it starts with dog, right? In the order that it lists inside the encyclopedia, right? Dog, right? But anyway, Gomer Az Dabar. So the only reason that can reconcile a Mason to use the initial G is that it stands for Gomer. Saying that again, that letter G stands for Gomer. This is to promote the worship of Gomer, that letter G inside that square in the compass that's producing, when a square and that compass come together, is forming the delta, the yani, right? The yani. That I'll leave it at that. We'll deal with Hinduism in a little bit, not tonight, and you'll see delta, the understanding of delta. That's also a fraternity, right? As well as sorority. And when you see them putting their hands in certain positions, they are forming the delta, right? Which is a woman's reproductive organ, the yani. But anyway, this is to promote the worship of Gomer. That letter G is to promote the worship of Gomer. Freemasonry promotes the worship of Gomer. I also taught in depth showing that Freemasonry is going to lead you into Judaism. It's going to lead you into Islam as you go up in the higher degrees, but it's leading you into a smorgasbord of religions, belief systems. That's all Freemasonry is. It is a one world religion. That's all it is, a smorgasbord. So Freemasonry promotes the worship of Gomer. So why is this important to know, right? If Freemasonry is promoting the worship of Gomer, why is this important to know? Well, I'm going to answer this question here. This is why it's important. When we go to Genesis chapter 10, verse 2, this is what it says, right? Starting at I'll just read verse 1. Now, these are the generations of the son of Noah. Sham, right? I'm saying in ancient Hebrew, Ham, and Yapah, right? Instead of in the Israeli language, it'd be Japheth, or or Japheth, right? But I'm just saying it from the ancient Hebrew, right? Sham, Ham, and Yapah, right? So now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were the sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, right? So that's a key word right there, Ashkenaz. That is a key word, right? That is a key word, Ashkenaz. We see the Hebrew definition of the word Gomer. We see here Gomer was the name of the son of Japheth and his descendants, right? We also know that there's a Hebrewist, in other words, a female that is referred to as Gomer, and that is dealing with the prophet Hosea, right? Hosea, his wife name was Gomer. That's a whole nother story, getting into all of that, not getting into it right now. So it also means, Gomer also means complete, right? The eldest son, right, of Japheth, grandson of Noah, the progenitor of the early Sumerians, and other branches of the Celtic family, right? Celtic, right? That's still, if I remember correctly, the Celtics is still part of the Germanic, Proto-Indo-Germanic community, which ultimately is from the Proto-Indo-European tree of languages. All right. So why is this important to know? I'm going to answer that question. Let's go to verse 5 in Genesis chapter 10, right? Again, verse 5, it says, by these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongues, after their families and their nations. So we see a key group of people under Gomer. We see Gomer. We see from Gomer, we have Ashkenaz. I want to say peace and blessings to my cousin. I know she's going to take it down. Ruhama. Have a great night, Ruhama. Thank you for holding down the chat for a little while. I didn't see you there, but thank you. Really appreciate you, cuz. And let's connect on this weekend. All right. So we know that Ashkenaz, and from Ashkenaz, you have what is called Ashkenazi, which is the Ashkenazi, transliterates to German, right? Germans are referred to as Ashkenazis, right? So these are the descendants of Gomer. So any One, for example, coming from within the Jewish community as we know them, they refer to themselves as Ashkenazi Jews. So they're telling you what their place of origin just with the name itself, right? So Gomer is the father of Ashkenaz, right? 90% of the Jewish community is descendants of Ashkenaz. And remember what I said too, when you start understanding Ashkenaz, right? When you start understanding this here, right? I did a lesson on, and I highlighted an article from the forward about DNA. They say that the Ashkenazi Jews are 99% European. 99% European. All right. So, now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, because I am going to give you a key prophecy. Let me make sure this slide is in order. I didn't give you too much information on that because I could have gone further, but I didn't want to get too deep in it. All right. Let me see here. Bear with me 1 second. All right. Let me see something here. I want to make sure this order is correct. All right. I'm going to take this. Actually, I'm going to move this around. And we'll get to this. I want to put this in a special place. All right. Let me take this out real quick. I'm going to move this from here. All right. And I'm just doing this on the fly. I know where I want that to go. Let's see here. Bear with me 1 second, family. Let's see here. All right. All right. Yeah, let me put it over here. We'll get to that prophecy here in a second. But I want to go through a different, I want to get to that a little later. This key prophecy. Let me see here. All right, let me take that out. All right, one last thing, family. I'm just updating this real quick. All right, let's take this here. Let's move this and let's put this down here. All right. All right, we'll put it right here. All right. Now that we got it updated, I just want to update it. I want to move it around because I didn't want to get to that point real quick. All right, there we go. All right. So the religion of fraternity and sorority, they promote the worship of Gomer. Let me say that again. The fraternities and sororities, right? All these fraternities, all these sororities comes from Gomer, right? They promote, comes from Freemasonry, and they promote the worship of Gomer. No matter what anyone try to tell you, what college fraternities, medical fraternities, law fraternities, all these different, even the Fraternal Order of Police, they all come from Freemasonry. They are heavily influenced by the Freemasons. So they promote the worship of Gomer. Let me say that again. Religion or the religion of fraternities and sororities, they promote the worship of Gomer. All right. So I want to make sure you guys understand that. Okay. And so the doctrine of Gomer, right? Let's deal with the doctrine of Gomer. We're still dealing with the son of perdition, right? And the doctrine of Gomer, Revelation chapter 2, verse 14 and 15. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. Now, we're not going to get into the food stuff tonight. We'll say that for this weekend. But again, let's read it one more time. But I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, pork, right? Swine, rodents, things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication, temple prostitution, right? It's one of the things that Israel began to do. So hast thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which things I hate. Let me say that again. So hast thou also them that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which things I hate. Right? So when we understand the doctrine, right, the doctrine of Gomer, it falls right in alignment with the Nicolaitans. Right? So let's go to Revelation chapter 2. Let's see what it says. Right? You're going to see another entry about the Nicolaitans. Verse 5. Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will remove thy candlestick out of his place. Now, these are addressing the leaders, the angels of each assembly here, the 7 assemblies here. So they allowed the doctrine of the Nicolaitans to come up into their assemblies, right? And we're going to define Nicolaitans in a second. So it says, else I will come unto thee quickly, and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent. Verse 6. But this thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. We see it's repeated here, right? When we go back here, verse 15, right? So hast thou also them that hold the doctrines of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate, right? So then when we went to the early part of this chapter, is saying the same thing, 2 different churches, right? Or should I, not churches, but assemblies. I don't like to use the word church. So we see that repeated twice, the deeds or doctrines of the Nicolaitans. So the question is, what or who are the Nicolaitans? Right? It's interesting when you see Nicholas, right? Nicolaitans, right? When you see Pope Nicholas, we'll deal with that in a second. So the Greek definition of Nicolaitans, and notice what it says here, right? It says here, Nicolaiti, an example adherent of Nicholas, right? Nicholas, Saint Nick, right? Nicolaitans, it means destruction of people. Let me say that again. And I hope y'all grab hold of this. Make a note of this. The Nicolaitans, right? It means destruction of people. So this tells you the doctrine of the Nicolaitans is the destruction of people. What people? Who? Who's the people that they want to destroy? It starts with understanding the people of the Most High. That's now you're getting into the crafty council. Right. So we see here the doctrines of the Nicolaitans is destruction of Yah's people. So again, Nicolaitans means destruction of people. So what's interesting is when you go into the in-depth definition of this word, it has this. It says a sect mentioned in Revelation chapter 2 who were charged with holding the error of Balaam, casting a stumbling block before it's not the church, right? The assembly of the Most High. It's not the church. The word church was not even used until the 4th century as well. So they never used this term church. And this is a very deceptive word of confusion that has so many people in error because of this word. Christ never died for a church. He never died for a building. Right. But nevertheless, casting a stumbling block before the assembly by upholding the liberty of eating things sacrificed to idols, as well as committing fornication, eating pork, eating swine. But yet in the church, in Christianity and Catholicism, they teach that it's okay to eat food sacrificed to these foreign deities. All right. So the Messiah says he hates the deeds of the Nicolaitans and those that hold on to their destructive doctrine. So guess what? I'm going to prove through over this lesson that the Catholic Church, the Messiah reject them. He don't like them because they're holding on to the doctrines of the destruction of his people. Same thing with Christianity. I'm going to show you Christianity, Islam, these religions, right? These belief systems, the Messiah rejects them because these are systems, these are belief systems of man that are holding on to the destructive doctrines of the Nicolaitans, who's all about destroying Yah's people. So Judaism, destroying Yah's people. So the Nicolaitans is comparable to the mistletoe. Now, I'm not sure if you guys understand the mistletoe, but let me show you a key point about the mistletoe, which is referred to the devil's fuge. So notice what you see here. Number 7, right? I'm not listing all of them here, right? But if you look at the playlist, last year I went through all of this when I did the whole Christmas week series. So 7 surprising facts about the mistletoe. Think the mistletoe is all about holiday romance. Think again. The festive plant, which also goes by the name devil's fuge, holds some sinister secrets, right? Number 1, the mistletoe is a parasite. How many of you guys knew that the mistletoe is a parasite? The mistletoe is a parasitical plant. Notice what the mistletoe does. And this is tying into the Nicolaitans, right? Those that hold on to this doctrine, right? Mistletoe is a parasitical plant, right? Think about those that have robbed us of our identity, stripped us of our identity, all these systems that came together. They are parasites. Parasitical, these belief systems are parasitical plants. They are mistletoes. The mistletoe is an evergreen pest that attaches itself to trees, plants, shrubs, stealing their nutrients and water. This is also considered a degenerate plant that Jeremiah talks about in Jeremiah chapter 2. The mistletoe is a degenerate plant, a degenerate vine, right? Mistletoe is an evergreen pest that attaches itself to trees, plants, and shrubs, stealing their nutrients and water. This can weaken or disfigure the host plant and eventually kill it. So the Nicolaitans, they are a parasitical group that attached themselves to the identity of another nation, and that nation is us. Right? Their parasitical doctrine and deeds were and continue to be used to conquer the children of Israel, which leads me to the Transatlantic World War. That's what I call it. This is the doctrines of the Nicolaitans, and every player that's part of this, they are exposed. They are part of this. It's not just the Catholic Church. The Jewish community was part of this world war as well. If I have enough time, I didn't put it in here. I'll put some sources in here to show you that the Jewish community was knee deep, right, in the Transatlantic World War, not transatlantic slave trade. Family, if anyone who call themselves teaching the book of Revelation, teaching prophecy, if they refer to the transatlantic slave trade as just being a simple slave trade and they're not recognizing that as a world war, stay clear from anything that they try to teach far prophetically. Because the transatlantic world war, right, not a slave trade, was a world war. Look up the definition of what a world war is, right? Our people were at war, and I'm going to prove it. Slavery in the Catholic Church. You guys know I show this all the time. I talk about this document all the time. Slavery in the Catholic Church, 1975, page 52 through 53. Papal grants to the kings of Portugal, giving authority. Now, the papal, this is the Pope, gave permission for the kings of Portugal because the Pope had authority over them, giving authority to enslave Saracens and other non-Christians of West Africa, with whom Christendom is at war in 1452 through 1514. But it goes on to say in 1442, a Portuguese captain brought to the Gold Coast some Moorish prisoners of war, exchanged them for 10 Negro slaves. There's a reason why you see the Moors listed there, Moorish, and the reason why you see the distinction for the Negroes, right? Because we know that these Negroes are Hebrews. Anyway, 10 Negro slaves, the wandering sheep herders of Africa, right? So it brought these back to Lisbon because The Portuguese were at war with the Moors, had prisoners of war, so of the Moors as held them as prisoners, and so they had an exchange. So the Moors gave some of our people, our ancestors, to the Portuguese as a trade-off, right? And you can look it up. The Moors, man, when you start studying the sub-Saharan slave trade or war within the continent, or the Arabic slave trade, or the Arabic war that they declared on our people, man, it was all kinds of things that they were doing to our ancestors. Doing all kinds of things with the women. They were using the women, as kind of a way of cheering up the soldiers. Having one woman can be raped by multiple, a gang of soldiers. They were castrating boys from the men and boys starting at the age of 5 and 6 years old, all the way up, castrating them. They were doing all kinds of stuff. There's still some images of that. I think I have some of them, and I may post a few of it, because that's something that many don't talk about. So the Arabic slave trade, or the Arabic war that was declared on our people, it sets up the Transatlantic World War, and the Arabic war is still going on right now. Look what happened to Kanye West. Not Kanye West, but what's his name? The comedian name. Kevin Hart, right? The modern Arabs in Egypt want to cancel him for saying that, the Africans, children, need to be taught that the ancient kings of Egypt were black, dark melanated people, and they want to cancel him over that truth, right? So again, going back here, it would appear that by 1452, the Portuguese were anxious to establish their property rights over their newly discovered West African territories. And so Pope Nicholas, notice what you see here, Pope Nicholas, who signed destructive doctrines, put edicts into place, still his name ties into the Nicolaitans, right? Pope Nicholas V, and was no, I'm not even going to go that deep in it, but Pope Nicholas, Santa Claus, Saint Nick, was approached and was apparently led to believe that these territories of the Guinea coast were inhabited by Saracens and other enemies of Christendom. There is no other explanation of a series of papal documents. And again, family, the church, right? When we start dealing with the Pentecostal movement, which comes from it's a branch of the Protestant movement, the Reformation, and all that stuff. All of those are subgroups from the Catholic Church. So don't let anyone, especially in the church right now, Christianity, try to say, oh, that's the Catholics. No, Christianity at that time, the Reformation didn't exist at this time, right? But anyway, they was all part of the Roman Catholic Church. So there is no other explanation of a series of papal documents. Remember the doctrines of the Nicolaitans, destruction of Yah's people, which applied the well-known contemporary rules of war. Wait a minute. Applied the well-known contemporary rules of war to the situation in West Africa. So they declared war on our people, whereas the Portuguese were well aware that the local Negro inhabitants were not Saracens and were not Muslims and were not the enemies of Christendom. In 1452, Pope Nicholas V, Saint Nicholas V, Santa Claus, addressed a brief to King Alfonso, right? Not going to get into all of that. So the local Negroes were inhabitants. They knew that they were not Saracens and they were not Muslims. And just give you a brief understanding of who the Saracens is. Saracens in the Middle Ages, any persons, in other words, Arab, Turks, or others who profess the religion of Islam. So they're saying that, wait a minute, these people that they targeted, they weren't Arabs, they weren't Turks, because actually when you understand Arabs, right, when you understand the Arabs that you see in Egypt, they're Turks, they're Turkish people, right? When you look at, for example, and this is getting into Aaron Elhake, he said that the Ashkenazi Jews, they are Turks. They're connected to the Turks. That's what he said. He made it clear. But anyway,
or others who profess the religion of Islam. So it's saying that they were not Turks, they were not Arabs, and they were not professing the religion of Islam. Earlier in the Roman world, there had been references to Saracens by late classical authors in the first 3 centuries AD. The term being then applied to an Arab tribe living in the Sinai Peninsula. So the Saracens are Arabs and Turks. Let me say that again. Saracens are Arabs, they are Turks, Turkish people, those that are practicing Islam, right? So another source I want to show you to further solidify the point of the doctrines, the destructive doctrines of the Nicolaitans, the edict that Pope Saint Nicholas, right, issued to enslave and go at war, to apply the rules of war towards our people. So African laborers for a new empire, Iberian slavery in the Atlantic world. This is what it says. It says, and I'm just going to highlight a little bit. This is going to reiterate what I just read. But notably, the treatment of Black Gentiles was addressed in 1452 and 1455, when Pope St. Nicholas V issued a series of papal bulls, destructive documents, the deeds that granted Portugal the right to enslave sub-Saharan Africans, right? They went to war. As I highlighted, they declared war, right? Church leaders argued that slavery served as a natural deterrent and Christianizing influence to barbarists. And so that's why you see the Catholic Church have so many members. That's why you see Christianity has so many members, because it was at the expense of forcing us, our ancestors, to embrace that belief system because of the things that they were subjected to. Study the Spanish Inquisition, right? Christianizing influence to barbarous behavior among pagans. Using this logic, the Pope issued a mandate to the King of Portugal, Alfonso V, and instructed him, right? So again, the Pope issued a mandate to the Portuguese King, Alfonso V, and he instructed him to do this. He gave him a mandate like Biden, but this is his instruction: to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagan whatsoever, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. But I just read that they weren't targeting Saracens when in the previous source that I highlighted. They were targeting our ancestors. They were targeting our ancestors, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdom, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. So is it simply a coincidence that Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, has the same name as Pope Nicholas? Sounds just like Nicholas from the Nicolaitans, right? Is it a coincidence? It's not. So who are these Negroes that they enslaved? These Negroes were systematically processed through the system of the Nicolaitans. There were laws created during the Transatlantic slave, or should I say World War, to govern the Negroes in order to completely strip them, our ancestors, of our heritage, of their heritage, so that the council would benefit. They entered into an agreement called the Asiento. They entered into this agreement that was facilitated and managed by the Pope, right? Papa, right? Notice what it says here, the Asiento, right? Iberian slave trade, Portugal and Spain under the same monarch until 1640 were the pioneers of the transatlantic slave trade. Iberian ports such as Lisbon, Seville, and Cadiz outfitted 97% of European-based slave voyages up to that date, carrying nearly 500,000 African captives to destinations of toil and death in Spanish America. We know it's a lot higher than that. In the early years, captives who had first been brought to Spain from Africa were then packed onto slave ships in Spanish ports for transport to the New World destinations. By the 1530s, however, the trade had shifted directions as Iberian ships sailed first to the African coast for captives, then on to the Americas. Now, That's dealing with the first leg, right? After 1545, Spain signed Asiento agreements, right? Multiple of them, Asiento agreements, authorizing other nations to transport, and we're dealing with the Catholic Church that's facilitating all of this. Transport Africans to Spanish colonies. The scale and nature of transatlantic slave trading changed once again. Thereafter, the trade to Spanish colonies were open to all comers, and Portuguese slave traders soon became a more familiar sight in Africa and American ports. Before 1641, 240,000 Africans were transported to the Spanish colonies in the Caribbean and in Central America, but a larger number, 337,000, were deposited in Recife, Salvador da Bahia, Rio de Janeiro, and other Brazilian coastal cities. But I could tell you it was a lot more than that. So this is the Asiento signed by the Catholic King of Madrid, Ferdinand, the sixth. Here it is. This is you see it here, signed by the Catholic King at Madrid. The Roman Catholics imprints is all over this, right? Importing Negroes into the Spanish Americans. All right. So the destructive doctrine of the Nicolaitans, right? It's also the Black Code, which is called the Le Code Noir, right? Makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves, permit the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic, right, are liable to confiscation, right? Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed, right? Sundays honoring the Christian, so-called Christian Shabbat. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated, right? The offender shall be branded with the mark of the fleur de lis and should be aggravating circumstances. Capital punishment may be applied at the discretion of our judge, right? And that's the fleur de lis. Come on, family. That's that football New Orleans symbol, which is also referred to as the lotus flower. The lotus flower. You know, our people still pushing for the NFL. Our people are still celebrating the NFL, even though the NFL continue to dump on our people. Still walking around with football jerseys and all. The New Orleans Saints, that symbol is what they used to cut the hamstring of our ancestors, used to castrate the men, used to, what they would do is even cut off ears, and they would heat this up and put that on the face, put that mark on the face of our ancestors, deform them. They were doing all kinds of things. This is the mark. This is called the Egyptian lotus flower. It's supposed to be represented as the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so they branded, they mutilated our people with this mark here. Come on, family. So is Gomer the son of perdition? I'm gonna ask that question. Is Gomer the son of perdition? I could go deeper into that, family, but I want to keep it simple, because I want to stay in the course on this. I want to stay on course. Let's see here. I want to stay anchored here. Let's put a poll out here, and let's see what you guys have to say. All right, I'm creating a poll right now, and just select yes or no. All right, let's see here. Let's create a poll. All right. Is Gomer all right? All right, so here we go. All right. Based upon all what I share with you, all the facts that I share with you, is Gomer the son of perdition? Right? Is Gomer the son of perdition? After all the facts that I shared, and I will go back over and I'll read some of the comments, but I'm going to encourage everyone. Let's participate. Let's interact here. Is Gomer the son of perdition? Did I prove to you? Did I give you substantial proof that Gomer is the son of perdition? Right? Type yes or type 1 for yes, 2 for no, or just go ahead and do the survey that's there. So let's see what we have here. All right. Lasagna Kumar, yes. Let's see who else we have here. Nexus, Nexodus, excuse me, Nexodus 66, demonizing of divine concepts. Okay. Let me see here. Just going pretty quick here. All right. Hallelujah. Let's see here. Keith, Kathy Longimbo says yes. Alexandria, yes. Warrior of Yah, yes. Who else? Trayvon Chapman, yes. Priscilla Sharp, yes. An Orthodox daughter of Zion, yes. Let's see here. Kisha, let's see here. Callwood, yes. Let's see here. David Wicks, I'm just joining. Okay. So I understand. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in tonight, watching this presentation. Appreciate you, my brother. Let's see here. Ike Thomas, yes. Jolly Inc. Not sure. Let's see here. David Wicks, I'm just joining. Okay. Ike Thompson, yes. David Machiavelli, no. No question. So that's a yes. All right. And we'll see a few more. So is Gomer a guy or some old guy? Okay, Gomer is the son of Noah, one of the sons of Noah, right? So Gomer, the grandsons of Noah, right? Japheth is one of the 3 sons of Noah. Gomer is Noah's son. Gomer is the son of Japheth, which we highlighted the Ashkenaz, which transliterates to German. But Ashkenaz is the son of Gomer and the grandson of Japheth and the great-grandson of Noah. So that's where we are right now. Understand. Hope that helps. Appreciate you. Now let's see here. First time here. Love the content. Keep it up. Appreciate it, Bob Cripp. Thank you for the love and support. Thank you for the words of encouragement. Really appreciate it. Thank you, my brother. Let's see here. Amiya Yakita. Yes. Going to answer a few more. Just got here trying to catch up. Understood. Let's see here. For Awakenings. Yes. Mr. The Original. Yes. Rod Lee. Yes. Let's see. Davion. D Nice. All right. D Nice. Murphy. All right. D Nice. They call me D Nice, right? KRS-One. DJ. Right. They call me D Nice. Old school. That's like the late 80s, or early 90s, right? D Nice. Keisha, yeah, yes. Let's see here. Thank you for really the love and support. Weekenders line. I am so enjoying this lesson. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber, hit the like and subscribe to the channel. And I encourage all those that are not subscribers, hit the like and subscribe to the channel. And for those that want to contribute to what we're doing here, the works here, the Cash App is pinned to the chat and also it's in the ticker. I was going to put up a store for t-shirts, for Woke Now t-shirts and all that. Unfortunately, Facebook put a monkey wrench in that, but we still want to do it for anyone that want to get some We Woke Now shirts and things along that line. I'll put it over on the Patreon account, and we just have our own t-shirts and mugs and things of that nature. So, but anyway, really appreciate it. So a few more. Abigail, yes. Melody, yes. So far, for the most part, you guys have said yes. All right. So let's go ahead and give clarity. Let's give some clarity here. So let's go ahead and give some clarity. So is Gomer the son of perdition? Right? Oh man, and I wish I had the Price is Right. I'm gonna have to put that in here. That Price is Right music when we don't get the answer correct, right? You guys are close, but is Gomer the son of perdition? No, Gomer is not the son of perdition. After all what I have taught here, guess what? Gomer is not the son of perdition. So Gomer is not the son of perdition. I know you're like, wait a minute, Pastor, you done gave all that information and you're going to tell me that Gomer is not the son of perdition? No, family. No, family. Is the Ashkenazis, right? Is Ashkenaz the son of perdition? Guess what? Nope. The son of perdition is Japheth. Let me say that again. The son of perdition is Japheth, right? Let me say this one more time because I know this may be a shocker for most of you guys, 90% of you guys. The son of perdition is Japheth. What? I know you guys are like, what did Pastor just say here? Did he set me up? Right? I know some of you guys are probably feeling like I set you up, right? But guess what? Japheth, right? I'll say it again. Japheth, he is the son of perdition. I know you guys are like, what in the world, Pastor? How can Japheth be the son of perdition? What? I know some of you guys probably feel like doing this to me. I know some of you guys are ready to give me the garbage can, but I'm going to explain. Your garbage cans yet. Don't empty your trash cans yet. Let's go ahead and give answers. Let's go ahead and give clarity to Japheth being the son of perdition. Let me show you here. Let me show you here. All right. Here's a key biblical prophecy of the son of perdition. Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. This is why I had to rearrange my slides on the fly. Elohim, some of you guys would say Elohim, right? That's the Israeli pronunciation of it. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. That is a key prophecy right here. A key prophecy. Gomer is simply a son of the son of perdition, Japheth. Ashkenaz is simply a grandson of the son of perdition, Japheth. But the son of perdition is the progenitor of another key son. See, all these people that are highlighted, they come directly from Japheth. Because when you start thinking about it, think about all the people, a lot of the turmoil that not just our people, we Shemitic people, but think about the Hamitic, those that are descendants of Ham are going through. Remember, you have modern Arabs, which are descendants of Turks, wanting to cancel Kevin Hart. See, that's the key, family. That is the key, because there's a number of Japheth descendants that want to completely do away with Israel, do away with the Egyptians, do away with the Ethiopians, do away with anyone that have that may come in contact or expose their agenda. So if you see that there's a pull for Israel to be recognized as Caucasian, then that means they have to whitewash all the key players that's connected to Israel, the ancient Israelites. So that means they have to do this with the ancient Egyptians. That means they have to do this with the Ethiopians. They have to do this with Libya. They have to do this with key countries that are in Africa. the Philistines, which now they call it Palestines, which actually is the Romans had a lot to do with that. Think about that. Think about that. Right? Remember, we're still dealing with the Nicolaitans, Revelation chapter 2. Think about it. Their name means the destruction of people. So let's deal with another key. I'm not going to go too deep with it, but let's deal with another key son or grandson, right? We dealt with Ashkenaz. I ain't go too deep, but everybody talk about Ashkenaz, right? Let's deal with another son. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem or Sham, Ham, Japheth or Japheth. And unto them were born sons born after the flood. So saying that they all had their sons, their children after the flood. The sons of Japheth, in other words, Japheth, Gomer, Gomer, Magog, Madai, and Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. Now notice I had Javan or Yawan highlighted. I know some of you guys like, wait a minute, who is Javan? Who is Yawan? Well, let's go ahead and deal with Yawan, because we could go through a lot of these. We see Russia up in here. We see Ukraine up here. We see the Turks up in here. We see quite a few people up here, but let's see who Javan is. Let's see who Javan is. Hebrew definition of Javan. Notice what it says here. Yavan, of course, in Israeli language, you see the Va versus the Wa. That's a whole nother discussion. But Javan, the name of a son of Joktan, and of the race of the Ionians or Eonians. An example, Greeks descended from him. Wait a minute. So we see another key son here. Let's go back here. We see another key son here, right? We see Gomer is a key son. We know Magog is a key son. We see Magog all up in Ezekiel when we get to chapter 38, chapter 39. Magog, Madai, we see all of that up in there. But Javan, guess what? Javan is the Greeks. Javan is the Greeks, with their territories also of a place in Arabia. Javan. Now, here's a key prophecy. Let's go to Joel chapter 3, verse 6. Here's a key prophecy. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. Come on, family. And we got our brothers and sisters that are all up in these sororities and fraternities and sororities, pledging, bragging about being Greeks, bragging about having the mark of Freemasonry all over them. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, Yawan, right? Or Javan in the Israeli. Ye might remove them far from their border. So the nations were guilty. That's what this is dealing with. And we see our ancestors being sold to, enslaved by the Greeks and other nations, were guilty of capturing and selling Judah as slaves. So the Greeks made major changes, right? And we want to deal a little bit with the Greeks, right? I'm going to deal with just a little bit of the Greeks tonight because we have a lot to deal with, right? So when we start thinking about it, right? So yeah, Ari Lynn, right? When we deal with that as we just painted that picture, that letter G, Gomer, right? Now we're dealing with Japheth because his descendants are occupying the heritage of Shem, not just Shem, but also the Canaanites, right? All the descendants of Canaan, or should I say Ham. You see that they're dwelling all up in there. And that's a great question. That's why I want to show that, yes, we could have said Gomer, but when we take it a step further, the son of perdition, Japheth, but we're dealing with that bloodline, right? Think about all what we just highlighted, the bloodline. We're dealing with the bloodline. So we're still dealing with one individual, but we're dealing with the bloodline, right? The bloodline, right? The son of perdition, right? The bloodline. So that's a great question. That's why I want to really walk you guys through this, because I could have really gone into Christmas and all that other stuff, but I want to start here. So let's deal with one of the major changes, right, that the Greeks made to one of the pillars of the Israelites' heritage. Remember, heritage, land, family, and tongues. Each one of Noah's sons had land, family, and tongues, those three major pillars that together is what form a nation, right? I'm not going to go through the details of that tonight. That's a lengthy teaching. But land, family, and tongues, when you read the book of Genesis chapter 10, right, you'll see we just highlighted Japheth, but each one of them had land, family, and tongues. That was their heritage, right? So the Greeks made a major change to one of the key pillars of the Israelites' heritage. And guess what? We're going to deal with this book, Proof of Interpolations of the Vowel Letter in the Text of the Hebrew Bible, right? Many of you guys have taken the Patreon class. Class number 1, I really go into how the Greeks really interpolated the language, the first 2 lessons. So this is giving you an understanding of how the Greeks interpolated our language. And I'm not trying to disrespect anyone that are making sounds like with the O sounds, when you say Elohim, right? Or saying Ruach, right? Because there were no O sounds. There was no diphthongs in terms of the Greek diphthong. There was no O sounds. The U comes from the O. These sounds were foreign to ancient Israel's language. Proof of the interpolation of the vowel letters in the text of the Hebrew Bible, right? And we're going to highlight just a couple of things. I'm not going to go too deep. Proof of interpolation, right? We're going to go to this is in the introduction of the book, right? We're going to go to page 5 here, and notice what it says here. It says this: but the case is widely different with regards to the further disclosure made in the following essay, namely that the Hebrew Bible as it issued from the pens of its inspired authors was written without vowel signs of any kind. So this is telling us there was no vowel signs of any kind written with the letters, whether points or letters. So when it says points, this is dealing with the Nikud, right? Nikud, that's where we see all those points in what is called the modern Hebrew, which is really the Israeli language. Those block letters, right, that we see, those block letters are Syriac letters. That's not the ancient Hebrew. Those are block letters. That's the Syriac block letters. So with that being said, you see these points. I'm sure you guys probably seen those points. Like, what is these points? They are vowel points, right? So that's what this is saying, points. So that system is called the Nikud system or the Naquad system, and it could also be referred to as the Masoret points, right? The Masoret's vowel system, right? Using again points, these dots, as to add accents or whatever, their accents to our language, to brand in our language. And then when you see letters, now this is where you get into the matrix lectionis, now using some of the letters as vowel letters. So in ancient Hebrew, there was no vowel letters. The Greek interpolated the language. That means to insert something of a foreign nature into something to form something else. That's what interpolation means. So that where the Aleph, right, or the Alap, right, the very first letter, the Yod, which is actually Yod. Remember, I shared this in our last live that we did when we was dealing with the Feast of Dedication. I encourage you guys to go watch that. I shared a key source proving that there was just only the ah sound in ancient Hebrew, as well as the Amharic, or the Greek language, rather, not Greek language, but the Ethiopian language, ancient language, Ga'az, which is referred to now as Ge'ez, and now the modern version of it is Amharic. Ancient Ga'az did not have all these vowel sounds. It just had the ah, similar to Sanskrit, having a consonant with the ah associated with the consonant. So again, it says here, right, the ancient text was written without any vowel signs of any kind, whether points, the Nikud, or the Masoretic points, or letters, the Matres Lectionis, that were the Aleph or Alap, the Yod, which is actually the Yad, and the Wa, right, which is Wa, or it makes the Wa sound, not Va, are now to be seen in the pointed text, useless, and in the unpointed one diverted from their primary and proper use. In other words, of the same general nature as that of all the other elements of the Hebrew alphabets, to occasionally service of denoting vowels. They there constitute no part of the original writings. Look at this, family. Those vowel points that you hear, those vowel sounds that you hear, they there constitute no part of the original writings, but were interpolated. Come on, family. I got to do this over and over again. See, I say this again. I don't knock anyone that are using the Israeli language when you say Elohim and you saying Ruach, you saying Yahuwah and all those different terms. But I can, I'm not knocking you, but don't knock me and others that says Shalom, that says Yahweh, right? Because I know someone say, wait a minute, Yahweh or Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the son. Now I can show a source here that also further confirms what I just said about the son. Matter of fact, I'm going to little geek mode, right? I know some of you guys don't have to work, so we're going to go a little geek mode tonight. Let me show you a little something. Let me go a little Fire Marshal Bill on you guys. Let me show you something. Let me show you a little something here, right? Let me show you a little something here. Let me put this in here real quick, right? And then we get back to this right here because I want to finish this portion up. And I'm proving to you what the Greeks had done to a key pillar of our heritage, modified our language. That's why we have so much confusion right now. And that's still part of the crafty council. So let me show you something. Let me show you something, right? And we'll go back to this thought. Let me show you something. Let me post this in here right now. And I'm going to show you another clip here. You guys know I show this clip a lot now because when I deal with this here, some people that may be joining for the first time may think that, wait a minute, what did Pastor just say? You trying to tell me that ancient Hebrew? You trying to tell me ancient Hebrew didn't have all the vowel points and all that stuff? It only had one sound? Wait a minute, that sound primitive. Well, primitive, guess what primitive mean? The original, the origins, the source, right? Primitive has been made into something negative. But let me show you something here. That's why you see the primitive root when you look at Hebrew. What is the primitive root word? The origin, the source. All right. But anyway, let me show you something here, family. Let's go here. And we'll go back to this thought, still tying in with this thought, interpolation. But let me show you something, right? This is coming from James Adair, right? James Adair, right? He wrote a book, right? And the book is called The American Indians, right? Or the History of the American Indians. And he covered Georgia. He covered Spanish Florida. He covered South Carolina. And, I got some key nuggets I'm going to drop on this in the road to Savannah, right? But anyway, on the defense of the American Indians from the Jews. This is in chapter 8 of James Adair book, The History of the American Indians, 1775, page 114. Now, I want y'all to see what he says here, right? This is what he says. And right. And what I'm reading is this part right here. Matter of fact, let me just zoom to it real quick so you guys can see exactly what it says. Before I conclude this argument, because in this chapter, let me just pull it out. In this chapter, right, on the defense of the American Indians from the Jews, what he's saying that these American Indians that he's come across, he's saying that there's a connection to Israel because he's proven that in the culture, their language, they are speaking Hebrew. Notice what he says here. And James Adair studied what is called antique Hebrew. right? That's a whole nother discussion. That's going to be in the road to Savannah, right? But anyway, before I conclude this argument, I must here observe that when the Indians meet at night to gladden and unite their hearts before, notice what it says here, Yehovah. Now, guess what? Remember, by this time, the language has already been interpolated. But we know in ancient Hebrew, there's no O sounds and there's no E sounds. So guess what? This is still in the syllable of saying Yahweh. Because if you take that O sound off, you take that E sound off, that's Yahweh. But notice this here. It says, they sing Yehovah Shu, Yehovah Shu, Yehovah She, Yehovah She, Yehovah Shai, Yehovah Shai with much energy. What is Yehovah Shai? Yahweh Shai, right? The first words is nearly in Hebrew characters. And this is, when you read this in ancient Hebrew, Yahweh Shai, right? You know, guess what? This is ancient Hebrew. The name of Joshua, right? The short form of Joshua would be Yashawayah, right? We covered this yesterday or the day before yesterday, or whatever, the last lesson, right? So he's saying that, wait a minute, they see Hebrew here. He gives some other words, but it goes on to say here, but they commonly make those words end with one syllable of the divine name, Yehovah, Yahweh, right? If we connect this with the former parts of the subject and consider they are commonly anointed all over in the time of their religious songs and circling dances, the word seems to glance at the Hebrew original. Come on, family. We can't make it any plainer than that. We can't make it any plainer than that. And that's what you see here. I just captured that and put it into my effects here, but this is what you see in the background. All right. So I just want to show that here. All right. Just want to show that to you guys, but let's go back to that source and see what the Greeks had done. Let's go back to this source here. Right. It says here, right? Again, right? But the case is widely different with regard to the further disclosures made in the following essay, namely that the Hebrew Bible, as it issued from the pens of its inspired authors, was written without vowel signs of any kind, whether points or letters that were alap, this says halef, yod, which was yad, wa, are now to be seen in the pointed text, useless, and in the unpointed one diverted from their primary and proper use. And it goes on to say, to the occasional service of denoting vowels, they constitute no part of the original writing, but were interpolated in it not long after. So this is telling you that these vowel points, these sounds that you hear people saying, Yahuwah, what, like the O sounds and the diphthong, the O and the U sound connected together. This is how you get Uwa, the O and the A. Those are not Germanic. Those are Greek diphthongs. Those are Greek vowels. And remember when I broke down the name Jesus coming from Yeshua, which Yeshua is it comes from Yahshua, and Yahshua is the short form of Yahweh Shai. So they interpolated the language, family. So let me bypass this here. Let's continue on here. Let's go to page 8 and notice what it says here. I'm just giving a couple of clips. In the first place, then about 2 centuries after the termination of the Babylonian captivity, and while a considerable number of persons still continued to speak pure Hebrew as their vernacular dialect, Asia was invaded by a people who had introduced into the original alphabet the vast improvement. See, they saying it's an improvement. Why? Because they looked at us as being primitives, right? Barbarians, just like how I read from some of the sources of Pope Nicholas V, they were looking at our people as barbarous, barbarians and all of that, uncivilized, right? The vast improvement of vowel letters in the letters that I don't like to say the Jews and the Israelites were, in consequence, forced in spite of their prejudices to learn a species of writing that made them acquainted with the use of such letters. Notice what it says here. In the second place, their scriptures were very soon afterwards translated into the tongue connected with this writing by the order, as tradition tells us, of a pagan government. This is dealing with the Greeks. And at any rate, in a country in which they and their religion were peculiarly hated and despised. This rendering of the Old Testament into Greek, a language at the time understood throughout the civilized portion of the world. So we're seeing here, what this is telling you is that the Greek interpolated our language as well as other languages to make our heritage, basically put themselves on top of our heritage, to put their stamp on our identity, to put their stamp on the things that are pillars in our community. Come on, family. Come on, family. And for those, let me play this video again about the O sound, because I gotta let you hear this, because I know some of you guys are like, yeah, right. But let me let you hear Dr. Furtado, who's giving a class. This is a clip from his class. He's teaching about the vowels. I want you to hear this here.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, A, E, and U. And then down the side, the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the A class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the A class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew. Everything that is a cholam vav used to be a long A. If you know the Hebrew word for peace, it's shalom. If you know the Arabic word for peace, it's salam. And that long A in Arabic is now an O in Hebrew. And so
now there you have it, family. There you have it, family. There you have it, family. There you have, sometimes our people like to hear it from other people in order for it to make sense. Sometimes we have to listen to our oppressors. Our people are so conditioned to hearing our history through, or hearing certain things through the lens or the voice of our oppressors. So I have to actually let you hear it from that perspective, right? And so again, every letter of the Hebrew alphabet was a syllable. So when he said the Y, it just, instead of saying shalom, it was shalom, because the Y is saying to stretch out the ah sound. No, that's not correct. In ancient Hebrew, every letter was a syllable. So that Y was pronounced. Remember what I said in sharing you with this article here, or this source here. There was no silent letters. There was no vowel letters in the ancient Hebrew. Every letter was pronounced. Okay, so just want to give clarity. I want to play that video, so that way you guys, for those that are watching for the first time, you can hear it with your own ears. So the Greeks interpolated our language. So when going back to this point, right? So we dealt with the Greeks. We're going to deal with more of that this weekend, and some of the other descendants of Japheth, right? Son of perdition. When you say Merry Christmas, again, you are actually saying you are in agreement, you are pleased, you are joyful at the dismissal, at the disbursement, at the scattering of, at the removal of our Messiah, right? Now, here's a key authoritative figure who have come through the bloodline of Japheth. Let me say that again. Here's a key authoritative figure who came through the bloodline of Japheth. This is Matthew chapter 23, verse 9. This is going to give you a hint here. Let's see if you guys catch on to it. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Right? Call no man on earth father. Greek definition of father, right? And the Greek word is pater, right? And notice what it says here: father, parent, right? Then we see here in this entry number 2, one who has infused his own spirit into others, right? Who actuates and governs their minds. I'm giving you some hints here. Is this a contradiction? Because we see Christ says, call no man father, right? But then when we go to Exodus chapter 20, that's part of the covenant. That's part of the 10 commandments. It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee. So is that a contradiction? Christ said, call no man father, but then we see the commandment saying that we are to honor our father. That we are to honor our father, but is this a contradiction? And I'm going to tell you, family, it's not a contradiction, because you have to understand the context, and we're going to explain it here. Call no man on earth father, but honor your father, right? Who is this key authoritative figure who have come through the bloodline of Japheth that we're referring to here? We're dealing with the papacy. Here's the etymology dictionary definition of papacy, right? It says papal office, but then it says see pope. But notice what it says, Latin papa. Wait a minute, that's father, right? Here's the etymology dictionary definition of pope. It says bishop, pope, patriarch, bishop, father, right? It says applied to bishops of Asia Minor and taken as a title by the bishop of Alexandria in 250 AD. Right? So now that we got that, guess what? We still going back to that celebration of Christ being dismissed, the dismissal of the Messiah, right? We're still dealing with the Pope when he says, call no man father, right? What he's saying is, do not put none of these people on platforms, right? On these plateaus like the Pope, like these people in church, like many people idolize pastors, because I make it clear in our assembly, hey, don't idolize me. Do not idolize me. No, we're gonna honor the Father, the true Father. Now, I may be the father of my children, but I am not. Do not put me in the same breath as the Most High. That's what the scripture is saying. Don't put any man in the same breath as the Most High. But the Catholic Church put the Pope, right, in the same breath as the Most High. Put the Pope in the same breath, actually above Christ, because they dismissed Christ. They scattered Christ. They kicked him out according to their doctrine. But now they're pushing the vicar. Who is the vicar? What does vicar mean? Right? So again, that's what the scripture, that's what Christ is saying. He didn't contradict. Honor your biological fathers. See, I never got with that program of the orphan spirit that's being pushed in many churches now. And that is the spirit of sonship. I don't know. I don't have a spiritual father, right? Yahweh Elohim is my father. That's why Christ said, when you pray, pray our Father, right? That's my father. And unfortunately, we got some people that have been awakened. We got some places, places of worship that among the awakened that men are making their wives call them Father. Say, pray. If they pray to the Most High, they have to say their names in the name of their husband while they're praying. Man, some crazy stuff is circulating out here, family. No, I never got with that sonship. Now, I can be a mentor to someone, but I'm not going to be revered as somebody's father. No. Nope, that ain't happening. I have someone as dear to me, of course, my father, but someone else that treated me just like his own son, and I call him Pops. Right? But it's not in the same breath as Yahweh Elohim, Abba. So let's see what Vikar means. Since, many are celebrating, right? Celebrating the dismissal of the Messiah, right? Merry Christmas is saying that you are having a celebration. You are joyous. You are happy that the Messiah was dismissed, that the Messiah was dispersed, that the Messiah was scattered, like his people scattered. So let's see what Vikar means. Let's see what it means. It says deputy, second in command, a substitute, deputy, proxy. Wait a minute, the Vikar, that's what the Pope is referred to as the Vikar. So it's saying that he's the second in command to the Father. That's what he's saying here. A deputy, second in command. Change, interchange, succession, a place, position. So this is what they teach about the Pope. In 1302, Pope Boniface VIII issued a papal bull stating that in papal bull, the Nicolaitans, destruction of people, a doctrine of destruction of Yah's people, issued a papal bull stating that the Pope has authority over two realms. Right? Notice what it says here. Right? Boniface VIII, right? Notice what it says here. The most famous papal document of the Middle Ages affirming the authority of the Pope as the heir of Peter, because they teach that Peter is the original Pope. On this rock, I will build my church, which that's not the proper context. That word church, Christ never used that word church, that Celtic word, because church is a Celtic word, not a Greek word. Ecclesia is the Greek word. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But the most famous papal document of the Middle Ages affirming the authority of the Pope as the heir of Peter and vicar of Christ over all human authority, spiritual and temporal. Spiritual power, according to the bull, rests in the hands of the church. Temporal power is in the hands of kings and soldiers, but is to be exercised. So it's saying that the Pope, Papa, has authority over the spiritual realm, right? And the secular temporal realm. But notice what it says here. Only as the church permits, because things spiritual are superior to things temporal. If temporal power errs, it is to be judged by the spiritual power. If the lesser spiritual power errs, it is to be judged by the higher spiritual power, all the way up to the supreme spiritual power, the papacy itself. So the Pope is viewed as the supreme spiritual father, the second in line, which can be judged only by the Most High himself. That's what they're saying, Yahweh himself. That the papacy has both authority over both the temporal, the secular realm, as well as the spiritual realm. That's what this is saying. Declare, state, and define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature to be subjected to the Roman pontiff. The Pope went on in 1303 to confirm the disputed choice of Albert of Habsburg as Holy Roman Emperor, and announcing that the emperor was overlord over all other rulers. So this is giving you proof here, right? Under the ultimate supremacy of the Pope. Come on, family. Come on, family. The Pope has the permission, according to the Catholic Church, to change scripture. That's why they changed the Shabbat. It was the Pope that did that. Now, I don't have that in here. I taught that if you look at the Shabbat lesson that I gave a couple of weeks ago, the live that I did, creating the atmosphere of change. So let's wrap this up with a couple of more passages, and we'll continue on with this in part 2 this weekend. Here's a stern warning. Colossians chapter 2, another stern warning from Apostle Paul, chapter 2, verse 16 through 19. Notice what Paul says here. Let no man therefore judge you in meat. We're going to deal with that meat this weekend. Or in drink. We're going to deal with that drink this weekend. Or in respect of an holy day. We'll cover it again, but we already covered that with the Shabbat lesson. So I encourage you guys to watch that. So I really don't have to go in depth with that. or of the new moon, or of the Shabbat days. So we see the 7-day Shabbat, and then we're dealing with the feast days, right? Which are a shadow of things to come. But the body is of Hamashiach. Verse 18, let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshiping of angels. We'll deal with that this weekend. Intruding into those things which he hath not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind. Verse 19, and not holding the head, from which all the body by joints and bands having nourishment ministered, and the and knit together increaseth with the increase of Yahweh. So, family, this is what many in the church would use. And some of the people that says that they are awakened, they'll use this verse and say that, hey, Apostle Paul is teaching against the feast days. Family, that's not true. That's not true. Come on, family. We got over 400 people that's been watching consistently. Come on, let's get those likes up. We should be well above 297. Let's get those likes up, family. Doesn't cost you anything. Just hit that click button, get the likes up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click subscribe. If you're having problems with your notifications, you may have to unsubscribe and resubscribe just to make sure your notifications are good, to get the notifications to this platform. But family, hit that like and subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Just a little time and effort just to hit that click, just to hit that clicker. All right. So let's go and continue with this here. So is Apostle Paul teaching against honoring the feast days and the Shabbat? No. Paul is not teaching against the commandments. He's not teaching against the feast days. He's not teaching against the Shabbat. But who is Paul actually speaking and warning against? Well, guess what? We could go to verse 4 through 8 of the same chapter. You guys, this is a little refresher from the last lesson that we did, or two lessons ago. And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words. For though I be absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in the spirit, joying and beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in Hamashiach, in other words, Christ. As ye have said, therefore have received Hamashiach, in other words, Christ, Yahweh Shai, Jesus the Christ, Adonai the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, aman, consistency, transliterates to truth as well, going to the right hand. That's what it means as well. As ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Verse 8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, not after Hamashiach. So Paul is dealing with the traditions of men, those that are teaching the traditions of men. There's not one single passage in Torah, in the scriptures, that refers to the feast days as a tradition of men. Even Amos chapter 5, where someone tried to post in the comment section or in the last chat, tried to suggest that Amos chapter 5, the Most High said, hey, when he said, I think it's verse 22, when he says, I despise your feast days, that he's not honoring the feast days. He said, I'm not honoring your feast days, because Israel began to do what we see today. Take the feast days and mix and mesh it with other countries' cultures and traditions, paganism, idolatry. And the Most High said, that's not my feast days. That's your feast days. That's not mine. I'm not honoring it. He said, and because of that, I'm going to put you into captivity. But Leviticus chapter 23 makes it clear that the feast days belong to the Most High. So the Most High didn't cancel the feast days, because after Israel went into a captivity, what happened? They began to honor the feast days. That's when especially when we get into the time of the Maccabees, they're fighting to honor the feast days. Christ, he's honoring the feast days. Paul honoring the feast days. All right. So again, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit after the tradition of men. Guess what? Christmas is after the tradition of men. Halloween after the tradition of men. Thanksgiving, tradition of men. Easter, because Easter is not the Passover. It's not Pesach. It's not Easter. That word comes from Eastre, right? That's dealing with something completely different. We'll deal with a little bit of that this weekend, right? after the rudiments of the world and not after Hamashiach, the Christ. So who is Paul actually speaking and warning against? Truth be told, he's warning against the church. He's warning against Christianity, Catholicism, Islam. But lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit after the traditions of men. So Paul is actually speaking against those who are teaching traditions of men, trying to judge people by their traditions, trying to use traditions to judge people that are actually honoring the things of the Most High, the commandments. The tradition of men is synonymous to the tradition of the elders, and Christ had to deal with the tradition of the elders. Why? Because here, then came Yahushai, right? Transliterates to Jesus, scribes, lawyers, and Pharisees, which were in Jerusalem, saying, why do thy disciples, Lamai, transgress the traditions of the elders? Zaquan, for they wash not their hands when they eat. So Christ is dealing with the Pharisees and the lawyers trying to push the traditions of the elders. But Christ has slammed them right here. But Yahushai said, answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandments of Yahweh by your traditions? So they're trying to bust out the Messiah's disciples, saying, hey, they are breaking the tradition of the elders by not washing their hands when they eat. But the Most High, through his son, Christ, is saying, why do you guys transgress the commandments of Yahweh? Didn't say the commandments of Christ. He said commandments of Yahweh, right? By your traditions, right? So I'm not going to get into all of this. This is Exodus chapter 30, verse 18 through 21. This is dealing with the actual law of washing hands, which this law was put in place to the priests. So you could just go and read this at your leisure. Exodus chapter 30, verse 18 through 21. Don't want to read this because that I already covered this in a previous lesson. So this is for Aaron and his sons, right? Then we see another law. I'm just fast forwarding Leviticus chapter 15, verse 2 and 3. This is confirming what I just read. You know, you see the washing of hands if you're touching something that's unclean, you know, so you'll see here, and whosoever touches his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. Let me zoom that in because I don't think I have all of this, the fullness inside my presentation, but at least you can see it right here. This law is dealing with if you touch something that's unclean. All right. So that's all this is doing. I'm not getting into the details just for the sake of time. So the law of washing hands and feet were for the priests, or if you touch someone that's unclean, so to speak, that had leprosy or had some type of disease or whatever the case may be, blood issues, but it had nothing to do with, washing hands before you eat. So that's what Christ has slammed that whole thing of traditions of men. So the other law was washing hands involves a man and woman who are experiencing discharge if someone touched them. So washing hands before eating is a tradition of man, right? So when we go to 15, verse 7 and 9, right? Many will try to use this same passage, right? This chapter to say, hey, you know what? Christ is saying it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles a man. No, and they try to use that to justify eating unclean food. And that's what you see down here, right? What this is dealing with has nothing to do with food. It has everything to do with this. Everything that we touched on thus far is dealing with someone eating with dirty hands. So they're saying if you're eating with dirty hands, if that dirt gets inside you, that's not going to defile you, right? Because it's going to go straight through you, right? But it says what comes out of your mouth. In other words, your words that's in your heart, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. That's what it's actually saying. Has nothing to do with dietary laws. So this is what Christ says here, ye hypocrites. Well, did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draw nigh unto me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts is far from me, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines of the commandments of men. So we got the traditions of men, we got the traditions of the elders, we got commandments of men, but we still dealing with things of who? Men. But when we go to Isaiah, we're going to see instead of that, we're going to see precept of men. We're going to see a fourth term, still dealing with things of men. Nothing to do with the Most High, them corrupting the things of the Most High and trying to push traditions of men, ideology of men. Wherefore Yahweh right, which transliterates to the Lord in this text, said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by precepts, the precepts of men. I know I'm going geek mode again, guys. I keep going geek mode. Blame Jay High style. I was trying not to go geek mode, but I'm going geek mode. So when you see this here, we just named 4 different labels that relates to men: precepts of men, commandments of men, traditions of the elders, traditions of men. This is all dealing with man-made laws and not the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. So did Apostle Paul teach against honoring the feast days and the Shabbat? No, he had to go to court for that. And when he went back to Jerusalem, he went to up in the temple and proved, like, look, I'm not teaching against Torah. I'm not teaching against Moses. I'm not teaching against the prophets. And he went into the temple and honored the Shabbat, honored the feast days with them to prove that he wasn't. But anyway, Apostle Paul, he taught the honoring of the Passover. Acts chapter 18, verse 21, you see it here. Bade them farewell, saying, I must by any means keep Shamar, this feast, Chag, that cometh in Jerusalem. So Paul is pressing out to go honor the Passover in that text, right? Did the early church, right, the early assembly, did Paul teach them to honor the Passover and the Feast of the Unleavened Bread? Absolutely, right? When we go to Corinthians, right? Let's go here. They didn't need blood sacrifice here, because look at what Paul says. See, that's what many in the church would say. Oh, well, you know what? If y'all going to honor the feast days, where's the blood sacrifice? Well, show me where Paul is dealing with a blood sacrifice in Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7 and through 8, when he's teaching them to honor the Feast of Unleavened Bread and also Passover. I challenge anyone. You can jump on here. I'll drop the link in the comment section. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even, that's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, for even Mashayak, our Passover, Pasach, right, is sacrificed for us. So he's saying, wait a minute. We don't, just like Christ told his disciples, in a nutshell, guess what? In the future, guess what? There's a time going to come that you won't need to do sacrifices. Even though the disciples and all of them, they were still sacrificing for a moment, right? Once that temple got destroyed, sacrifices got completely eliminated, right? So purge out thereof the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Mashayak, our Passover, Pasach, is sacrificed for us. But he didn't stop there. Verse 8, therefore let us keep the feast. Wait a minute, come on. This is a drop the mic moment. This is a drop the mic moment. Because Paul is saying, wait a minute, you know what? Christ is our Passover lamb. You don't need to pull out those blood sacrifices anymore. He says, let us honor the feast. Let's give it a garbage can to those that teaching differently. Let's do this in slow motion for those that may not have really taken all of this in. Let's see what Paul says in slow motion. Therefore, let us keep Shamar, the feast, Chag, not with the old leaven, for the people in the back. Let's give them their order to go. So guess what, family? Come on, family. We're leaving nothing, no stone uncovered here. Right? I just proved it here that Paul is teaching to honor the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Right? When he said, therefore, let us keep Shamar, right? Actually, a better choice of words, because Shamar also means execute. So Paul is saying, therefore, let us execute the feast. But nevertheless, Paul is teaching honoring the feast of dedication. He's also teaching the feast of unleavened bread. So Apostle Paul in Colossians is actually teaching against those who celebrate Christmas, Easter, and other traditions of men who are attempting to judge against those who honor the holy days of Yahweh. Right? And when we go back to Colossians chapter 2, verse 4 and 8, guess what? This is another thing, and we're going to close out with this final thought here. And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words. For though I be absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in the spirit, joying and beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in Hamashiach, in other words, the Christ, as ye have therefore received Hamashiach, right? Receive Hamashiach, Yahushai, Adonai, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, consistency, permanent, Aman, established in the Aman, as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving, Hawadah or Thawadah. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Hamashiach, in other words, the Christ. So lest any man should beguile you with enticing words. The Hebrew definition of beguile, notice what it says here, because the Hebrew word is ramah. It means to hurl, to delude or betray, deceive, mislead, deal treacherously. Hold to that thought. Let's go to the etymology dictionary definition of entice. It says to incite or instigate, stir up, fire, set on fire. So now let's bring this in, give clarity. What Paul is saying, don't let anyone deceive, mislead, deal treacherously, because many of these people in the church, they can be very treacherous, right? They can be very rude, nasty, to put a lot of pressure on many that are honoring these things, honoring the things of the Most High, and get bullied, get intimidated, and not honor these things. Don't let anyone deceive, mislead, deal treacherously, bully you, right? Bully you, right? Treacherously with you through this should be supposed to be said, bully you and set you on fire. Excuse the wording here. Bully you and set you on fire, right? It's supposed to be and, so excuse me for the typos here, and set you on fire and not doing the things that pleases Yahweh. Awar means to set on fire, right? Here, right? And we see that word in the very beginning, Genesis chapter 1, when it says, and Yahweh said, let there be light, right? It says awar means to set on fire, right? But here, this is saying, Paul is saying, don't let anyone deceive you. Don't let them mislead you. Don't let them deal treacherously with you and set you on fire and not doing the things that pleases Yahweh. Let me correct this slide here. This slide is all tore up. Let me correct it here. All right, we almost finished here, but that slide is kind of getting to me. All right, let me correct this slide to what it should say, and we'll read it one more time. All right, it's supposed to be and set. All right, there we go. All right, that should do it. I just had to change it, family. So again, Paul is saying, don't let anyone deceive, mislead, deal treacherously with you, and set you on fire and not doing the things that pleases Yahweh. In other words, don't have anyone that cause you to get in this place that you just start going against the Most High? Set you on fire? Have you, motivated, so to speak? Have you pushing to do the things, to go against the things that pleases the Most High, like honoring His law, statutes, and commandments? That's the things that pleases Him. Honoring His covenant, honoring His feast days. Isaiah 56, especially for the sons of strangers, said, do the things that pleases Yahweh. Honor His covenant, honor His feast days. All right. So also I want to highlight real quick is beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy. Let me say that again. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy. And when we go to the Greek definition of this word, it can be very misleading. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to show you why. So philosophy or philosophia, that's the Greek pronunciation of this. And it doesn't really give you much here. It says love of wisdom. When we go to the in-depth definition, it says here, use either of zeal for or skill in any art or science, any branch of knowledge. That's, used once in the New Testament of the theology, or rather theosophy, of certain Jewish Christian ascetics, which busied itself with refined and speculative inquiries into the nature and classes of angels, into the ritual of the Mosaic law, and so forth. So this is not this is where things get really deceptive. I know when we start going through these etymology dictionaries, you have to use discernment, because you can tell that this was written by someone that was a Christian, and you can tell this was written by someone that is under the influence or teachings that not to honor the things of the Most High, the law, statutes, and commandments. So, but guess what? When we start dealing with any branch of knowledge, that's the key. Use either of zeal for or skill in any art or science, any branch of knowledge. All of this part right here, this is trying to say, hey, legalism, right? When someone from our community says, hey, we got to honor the law, statutes, and commandments, the church will quickly call you, label that legalism. But the same people will look at you wrong if you tell them that you don't celebrate Christmas. They'll look at you like you crazy if you told them that you honor the feast days, that you're honoring something that's actually biblical. They'll take a tradition and use that to judge you. So family, let's put this in proper perspective. In this text, we see philosophy. Philosophy can be used interchangeably with theology. See, theology is nothing more than a glorified term in Christianity, right? And also Catholicism, and also in, Islam, right? The study of the Most High. It's a glorified term for Christian philosophy. That's all it is. Theo means, transliterates to God per se, and ology, the study of. So what is a key theology that spoiled the children of Israel? Man, my apologies for all these typos. But anyway, I don't have time to correct it. I'll correct it tomorrow. What's a key theology that is spoiling the children of Israel, or have spoiled the children of Israel? Well, I'm going to get into it real quick. It's replacement theology. That is another destructive doctrine of the Nicolaitans. And I could point out quite a few theologies or Christian philosophies that have done a lot of damage, right? Let me see. I'm trying to see if I see one of my old school books here. Trying to see if I see it here, and I'll show it on the screen. It must be in my other office, because I had a class called the Theology of Grace. I don't see it. Yeah, Theology of Grace is one of the better classes I took in school. And the Theology of Grace man, you learn that so many people got killed over theology of grace because they had their different understandings of grace. So these so-called Christian theologians, Catholic theologians, was killing each other over their different understandings of grace. That's what Paul is talking about when he says philosophy. When we go back here, when he says, do I have it here? Don't let anyone, no, that's not it. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy. In other words, these different theologies, these different doctrines of men. So let's deal with replacement theology real quick, which is covenant theology. This is coming from Paul P. Enns, the Moody Handbook of Theology. I encourage you guys to get this book. Notice what it says here. Covenant theology is a system of interpreting the scriptures on the basis of two covenants, the covenant of works and the covenant of grace. Some covenant theologians specify three covenants: works, redemption, and grace. Covenant theology teaches that God initially made a covenant of works with Adam, promising eternal life for obedience and death. For disobedience, Adam failed and death entered into the human race. God, however, moved to resolve man's dilemma by entering into a covenant of grace through which the problem of sin and death would be overcome. Christ is the ultimate mediator, right? So the doctrinal affirmation of covenant theology, that's what I want to go over. The covenant of works, the covenant of redemption, covenant of grace, and replacement theology. So again, the doctrinal affirmation of covenant theology. So within covenant theology, these are the different branches of it: the covenant of works, the covenant of redemption, the covenant of grace, and of course, replacement theology. Replacement theology is part of covenant theology. Some, unfortunately, think that they're different and will teach as if they're different, but no, covenant theology and replacement theology, they are the same. So covenant theology is also known as replacement theology. So let's go back to the source that I pointed out, and let's see what it says here. It says replacement theology is a distinctive of covenant theology, right? The terminology reflects its teaching that the church has replaced Israel in God's program. They believe that since Israel rejected Jesus as their Messiah, God has replaced Israel with the church. Israel no longer has a future in God's program. The promises that God has made to Israel have been fulfilled in the church. I'm sure you guys heard this before. The disintegration of Israel, or excuse me, the disintegration. I said disintegration. Excuse me, getting late here, family. The disintegration of Israel as a nation and the dispersion of the Jewish people among the nation is an added argument that replacement theologians use as to advance their belief. Since the church has replaced Israel in God's program, the promise made to Israel have been or will ultimately be fulfilled in the church, right? So this is just giving you some calling out and exposing and giving you proper clarity of what covenant theology actually teach. So it says here, replacement theology developed over the centuries, starting with Augustine, who lived during 354 and 430 AD, viewed Israel as having been replaced by the church, right? That's what you hear being taught right now, that the church replaced Israel. He believed that the promises originally made to Israel would be fulfilled in the church. Church leaders such as Jerome and Chrysostom invoke harsh polemics against the Jews. Through the Dark Ages, anti-Semitism became prominent, culminating in the atrocities of the Crusades against not only the Muslims, but also against Israel. The dominant view during these centuries was that God had rejected the Jewish people and replaced the Hebrew nation with the church. Unquestionably, the hostility of the people towards the Jews affected medieval theology. So replacement theologians point to Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, which they say shows the sonship of to Abraham is spiritual and not physical. See, this is where they get into the spiritual Israel. And there is no such thing as a spiritual Israel. Let me say that again. There is no such thing as a spiritual Israel. All right. Just want to make sure you guys understand it. This replacement theology, that's what we see happening right now. Replacement theology is running rampant. We could call it as part of the cancel culture, but this replacement theology has been going on for quite some time. So let's get ready to wrap this up, this start up here. Let me do something real quick. Hold on one second. Trying to clear something up here. All right, we're getting there, family. We're getting there. We're almost done. So replacement theology, and again, it's a lot to unpack with Paul's letter to the Colossians, right? But notice what it says here, right? Replacement theologians of Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, right? Which they say shows that the sonship of Abraham is spiritual and not physical. So anyone that's trying to teach that there's a spiritual Israel, right? They are misrepresenting Paul, because there is not a spiritual Israel. There's no such thing as a spiritual Israel. There's always a physical Israel. Let me say that again. There's always a physical Israel. There is not a spiritual Israel. And that's what many people are using. I know I'm going a little fast, family. I'm trying to get it all in. And I apologize if I'm going a little too fast here. I know I sped up a little bit. All right. But again, because I know we've been going almost 3 hours. This is one of the lengthier lessons here. I know I'm covering a lot. But replacement theology, replacement theologians, right? Replacement theologians point to Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, when they say shows that the scripture shows that sonship to Abraham is spiritual and not physical. Paul never taught that. But let's go ahead and continue. Let's go to Galatians chapter 3, verse 29, and this is what it says. And if ye be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise? See, this is what they will point to try to say, hey, look, spiritual Israel. That's not true, family. This is not true. Paul is not teaching that. But let's go back to this source here. Let's see what the source here. So in the source, right, it highlights different theologies, but then it gives you a summary for an evaluation. It'll give the pros, it'll give the cons of different theologies that are out there. But let's see what it says. I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to give you a couple of bullets of what it says about covenant theology, the summary, the evaluation of covenant theology. Notice what it says. Scriptures related to Israel. Ezekiel 36, verse 25 through 28 are made to refer to the church. So what they're saying is how passages like Ezekiel 36, verse 25 through 28, right? What the church has done, they're made passages that are for Israel. They have taken passages and now redirected those passages to give the appearance or teach as if this is dealing with the church. That's exactly what they do. So if we go to Ezekiel, I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but I'm going to read it real quick since we're here, just so that way you can see what it's saying. Ezekiel 36, because they also teach Ezekiel 37. Whenever you deal with revivals, they teach Ezekiel 37 like it's dealing with the church, when actually it's dealing with Israel. So if we go to Ezekiel 36, verse 25, and it says this, and I'll just read it out. It says this: then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. Right? Verse 27, I will put my spirit within you, and will cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. So this is one of the passages, again, that they will use to say that, hey, look, this is one of the passages that supports that the church per se, this passage is referring to the church is not Israel. So let's continue here, right? It says this: replacement theologies, major weakness that it must resort to hermeneutics of allegorization. In other words, now they're dealing with allegories. That's what this is saying, that they have to make the text into an allegory in order to push the theologies that they've come up with. They'll push the narrative like, oh, that's just symbolic, or that's just spiritual. That's their way of trying to, basically in a nutshell, answer or reappropriate the culture or the heritage of the Israelites to the church. But again, there's always going to be a physical Israel. Let's see what this says. It says it always means that the physical posterity, right? Notice what it says. I'll start from the beginning again. Replacement theology's major weakness is that it must resort to hermeneutics of allegorization. Israel is made to mean the church, right? This is why it's a lot of confusion. That's why I say the church is not Israel. The Messiah never said, on this rock, I will build my church. And I'll get to that in a second. However, a lexical and concordant study of the word Israel will demonstrate that Israel is never used as an allegorical sense. It always means the physical posterity of Jacob. Allegorization is not objective. In its interpretation, it is subjective and leads to a serious question. If the text concerning Israel can be allegorized, what else can be allegorized? Liberal theologians take this concept to a final conclusion by allegorizing the claims of Christ by thereby denying Christ's deity. Right? Number 6, Scripture is clear that God has not abandoned the Hebrew people. Paul raises the question and then gives the categorical answer. I say then, God has not rejected Israel, rejected his people, has he? Let me read that again. I say then, God has not rejected his people, has he? May it never be, for I too am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people, whom he foreknew, right? So the scripture is clear that God has not abandoned the Hebrew people. That just reiterating that quote. So the doctrine of Nicolaitans is the covenant theology. So Paul made it clear, as we were going back to this article here, God has not rejected his people whom he foreknew, right? In other words, he knew that Israel was going to go and sin before him, but he's not going back on his promise, because if he did, then he lied to Abraham. He's breaking his promise with Abraham. All right. So wrapping this up, the doctrine of the Nicolaitans is covenant theology. All right. The doctrines of the Nicolaitans is replacement theology. Right. Replacement theology's major weakness is that it must resort to a hermeneutic of allegorization. In other words, Israel is made to mean the church. So Matthew 16, verse 18, wrapping this up. I know I said that a few times, but I really am. And I say unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So what did the Messiah mean when he said, upon this rock I will build my church? Let me show you. The word church is a transliteration of a transliteration. When we go to the Greek, ecclesia or ecclesia, however you want to pronounce it, it says here, it means a calling out, a religious congregation, assembly, church. Now let's go to the in-depth. This is where you're going to get the true understanding of it. It says 1A, gathering of citizens called out of their homes, But when you go to this is entry number 1, but sub entry B, it says the assembly of the Israelites. So in this text, when Christ says, on this rock I will build my church, he didn't say church. Actually says, I will build the called out people of Israel. I'll give you the actual technical term, right? So ecclesia means called out congregation. Ecclesia within the context of the Holy Scripture means the called out, the assembly of witnesses of Israel. And we get this from Exodus chapter 12, verse 6. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, the whole assembly, right? Kal Quahal of the congregation of Israel, right? Idath Yashara'al. So that's what Christ would have actually said from a Hebrew perspective, because he's dealing with the Hebrews. He's going to speak to them in their Hebrew language, like he did Paul. He didn't speak to Paul in Greek. And actually records that Christ spoke to Paul in the Hebrew tongue. So the whole assembly is Kal Quahal of the congregation of Israel, Idath Yashara'al, right? So that's what Christ would have said. Christ would not have said church. And here's the last source right here. Dictionary of Phrase and Fables. Notice what it says here. And this dictionary is coming back. I mean, this is like 1840 something. I can't remember the date. I know it's in the 1840s. Right? I thought I had the dates here. But anyway, this is what it says about church. The etymology of this word is generally assumed to be from the Greek kurio oikos, in other words, house of God. But this is most improbable, as the word existed in all the Celtic dialects long before the introduction of Greek. No doubt the word means a circle. So that word church, it means circle. It does not mean assembly. It does not mean the people. It goes on to say the places of worship among the Germans and Celtic nations were always circular. So this is telling you that the original church is, as it says here, witness the complex of Stonehenge, Avonbury, Silbury, Hill, Stanton, Drew. So it's saying that the original church is Stonehenge. It's dealing with a physical structure. So family, that's it. I know I gave you a lot of information, right? We're going to stop right here. This is a good breaking point. I know I gave you a lot of information. So there's a lot of things that we need to unlearn. And I am a pastor, and I had to go through kind of like that purging. A lot of the poor doctrines that I taught. I taught some of these theologies, and I had to repent for that. And ask for repentance, like, yeah, forgive me for teaching your people incorrect. Forgive me for being brainwashed, so to speak, to the theologies of man, to where as though when I went to school, all they did was taught me how to teach their point of view. That's all it did, how to become disciples of traditions of man, to the commandments of man, the traditions of the elders, the precepts of man that we just covered. So I gave you more than enough proof and proper clarity that Apostle Paul actually spoke against the church that we see today, the Catholics, what we see today. He was actually speaking against Christmas. He was actually speaking against these different theologies that are being circulated that are deceiving so many people. So I hope this helps you out, family. All right. I'll just drop the link. I know I said I will drop it in. I'll drop it in real quick. I know that, being that it's a short week for many of us, I'm up a little later, so I'll put this in. All right. Hey, I want to say peace and blessings to my brother Go Black to Africa. Really appreciate you. I've been catching your videos, man. You've been on a roll. You've been posting some great stuff, man. Just some of the things that you've been posting. I mean, you just really been going in there, man. I like that lesson that you did on the Russian icons, because I have the PDF on that. But to see you put that out there, and you're getting it out to so many people. The Russian icons. A lot of people don't know about the Russian icons, and that, man, you've really been putting in a lot of work. Really appreciate what you're doing, my brother, and definitely want to connect with you, and I really want to get you on here if you can, if your schedule permits. And man, I definitely would like to connect with you about the Russian icons, because I taught that a while back, and when I first started teaching on that, man, that book was like almost $4,000. Now that book is like that book is skyrocketed. That book is like almost $10,000. So, but I didn't purchase the book. I had to go to the library, out here at the college out here, and actually take some screen prints and make some PDFs off of it. But thank you again, my brother. Really appreciate you. Love and appreciate all that you do. All right. So family, I dropped the chat, or the the link to jump on. It's in the comments section, and I'll let that sit there for a couple of minutes. And again, family, while that's sitting there, I'll go ahead and garbage cans to some of the stuff that we see circulating, like the poor teachings of these traditions of men that is not biblical. This Christmas stuff, the all these different things, like the holidays, these man-made holidays that people are going broke over. Man, I like I said, I had to really do a lot of purging. Now, I will say, here in our assembly, we didn't get caught up with Easter and all that other stuff. I taught against it, but I will say that, it can do a lot to a lot of people. But I was not honoring the Shabbat. We was doing first day of the week service and all those different things. We were not honoring the feast days, but the Most High really pricked my heart. And I'll do a thorough lesson on John chapter 8. That's the chapter that the Most High used to have me shift from the stuff I was teaching. Did all the seminary thing, and my degree in divinity. That didn't do much, right? That didn't do much. All it did was just taught me theologies of that seminary that they support. And I had to undo and throw all that stuff in the garbage, family. So with that being said, since I don't see anyone jumping on, and Go Black to Africa, really appreciate all that you do, and looking forward to your next stream. I mean, you've been putting in a lot of work. And family, really appreciate you guys. I didn't see any trolls. Maybe that's because the moderators were doing their thing, but really appreciate you guys. I'm ready to jump off here. Since I don't see anyone in the chat, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But in the words of Moses in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14, this is where Israel, they were delivered, they were led out of Egypt, but they came to what seemed to be a dead end, and they started to panic. They started putting things, saying words or making statements like, hey, we should have stayed in Egypt. So here it is, they're at this dead end. The people are panicking. The Egyptians are coming to kill many of them and bring them back into captivity. And so Moses, under the instructions of the Most High, Yahweh, had to calm the people. And the Most High gave Moses these words. He said, tell the people, fear ye not. And family, we have to take the same advice. Fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians, in other words, these strongholds, the captivity that we've been in, the plagues that these people have inflicted on our people, the lies that we've been subjected to, the deception that we've been subjected to, our identity that has been taken from us. These bullies that's trying to bully us, these ADLs and all these different groups out here about because we're waking up. These Egyptians will not have power over you ever again. These strongholds will not have power over you ever again. Here's the kicker, right? The Most High will fight for you. That's the word. The Most High will fight for you. The Most High will fight for you, will fight for me. The Most High will fight for you. But here's the kicker. We must hold our peace. And the Hebrew word in that text is not, some of you guys would say shalom, shalom. Some of you guys would say salama, right? The Most High said in that text for us to hold our peace, but it's not dealing with that type of peace. The Hebrew word that's in that text is karash, and I'm saying it from the ancient Hebrew, karash, which means be quiet. Family, sometimes we have to learn how to speak when need to speak and be silent when we need to be silent. There's nothing wrong with calculated silence. So in a nutshell, the Most High said to Israel, sit back, pay attention to what he's going to do and what he's getting ready to do to the Egyptians. But while he's doing this, be quiet. Be quiet, family. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. I'll say it one more time. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel.
Somebody better call